A bullet doesn't ask questions, it just answers them. Maya Ellery learned that the hard way, standing in a downpour on a New York dock with a stranger's blood on her hands, and her entire life rewritten in the span of 5 days. She'd thought love was the most dangerous game. She was wrong. Power was. Legacy was. And the man beside her, Dorian Vance, had just burned his family's empire to ash to prove it. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. This story starts where all good disasters do, at an airport at midnight with a text message that destroys everything. If you want to know how a Chicago photographer ended up holding a smoking gun in Manhattan's underworld, stick around. Drop a comment with your city, so I can see how far this story travels. Now let's rewind. The fluorescent lights at O'Hare International buzzed like dying insects, casting everything in that particular shade of institutional white that made 11:47 p.m. feel like purgatory. Maya Ellery sat alone at gate B17, her carry-on wedged between her feet, her phone clutched in both hands like a prayer she'd stopped believing in. The text had come through 3 minutes ago. Don't hate me. 3 words. Ethan couldn't even manage a fourth. Her thumbs hovered over the keyboard, deleting and retyping responses she'd never send. I already do. Delete. You're a coward. Delete. Why? Delete. The cursor blinked, mocking her, and she wanted to throw the phone across the terminal just to watch it shatter against something solid. Boarding for Air France. 332 to Paris had started 10 minutes ago. Zone 3, her zone, had been called twice. The gate agent kept glancing at her with that particular blend of pity and irritation reserved for people holding up progress. Paris. 3 weeks. The photos she'd planned to take along the Seine, the cafe where Hemingway used to write, the tiny gallery in the Marais that had agreed to show her work. Ethan was supposed to be there. They'd booked the tickets together 4 months ago, back when his smile still reached his eyes, back when he still kissed her goodnight instead of turning away with his phone glowing in the dark. Don't hate me. Her vision blurred. She blinked hard, refusing the tears, but her throat had that tight, hot feeling that meant they were coming anyway. Around her, travelers rolled their luggage past with the efficiency of people who had their lives together, people whose partners didn't implode relationships via text message 40 minutes before an international flight. Final boarding call for Air France 332 to Paris, Charles de Gaulle. Maya looked up. The gate agent was staring directly at her now, one hand on the microphone, the other poised over the keyboard like she was 2 seconds from closing the door. Get up. Walk. Board the plane. Paris doesn't need Ethan. You don't need Ethan. But her legs wouldn't move. Her hands wouldn't release the phone. Because somewhere in the back of her mind, past the anger and the hurt, a small, pathetic part of her still thought he might call, might explain, might say it was a mistake, a moment of panic, cold feet that had nothing to do with her. The gate agent picked up the microphone again. This is the final... Maya's phone buzzed. Her heart lurched. She looked down. Not Ethan. A notification from her credit card company. A charge from Ethan's account, their shared account, had just processed. The Violet Hour. A bar in Wicker Park. 20 minutes ago. $147. She opened her banking app with shaking hands. 2 cocktails. Appetizers. The automatic tip had calculated on a bill for 2 people. He wasn't stuck at work. He wasn't having a crisis. He was on a date. The rage came fast and clean, burning through the grief like gasoline. Maya stood so quickly her carry-on toppled over. She didn't pick it up. She turned away from the gate, away from Paris, away from the life she'd been stupid enough to believe in, and started walking. Her feet carried her through the terminal on autopilot, past the duty-free shops with their gleaming bottles of liquor she couldn't afford, past families camped out at charging stations, kids sleeping on parents' laps, past a janitor mopping the same spot over and over, his eyes glazed with the particular exhaustion of the overnight shift. She ended up at a bar near baggage claim, one of those generic airport establishments with too loud music and too bright screens showing sports nobody was watching. She ordered whiskey. She never drank whiskey. It tasted like paint thinner and burned all the way down, which felt appropriate. The bartender, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a name tag that said Lorraine, slid a glass of water across the bar without being asked. Rough night? Maya laughed, a brittle sound that didn't reach her chest. Rough year. Tonight's just the finale. Drink the water first, Lorraine said, not unkindly, then the whiskey. Then you decide if you need another. Maya obeyed because she had no better plan. The water was cold and tasted faintly of metal. The whiskey still tasted like paint thinner. She was halfway through her second when her phone buzzed again. Ethan, finally. I'm sorry, I couldn't do it. You deserve better. The fury that rolled through her was so pure it felt almost clean. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. You're goddamn right I deserve better. You couldn't even tell me to my face? The 3 dots appeared immediately. Disappeared. Appeared again. I was afraid. Of what? Of hurting you. She nearly threw the phone then. Nearly hurled it at the screen showing a basketball game neither team seemed interested in winning. Instead, she typed with the careful precision of someone whose rage had calcified into something colder. You hurt me anyway, and you're still a coward. She blocked his number before he could respond. The bartender refilled her water. X? As of... Maya checked her watch. 23 minutes ago. Yeah. Good riddance, Lorraine said with the certainty of someone who'd survived her own share of bad men. Though I'm guessing you had plans tonight that didn't involve getting drunk at O'Hare. Paris. The word came out broken. 3 weeks. Non-refundable tickets. A gallery showing. He was supposed to... She stopped, shook her head. Doesn't matter now. Sure it does, Lorraine said. Matters enough that you're sitting here instead of on that plane. The plane left. Maya gestured vaguely toward the windows, where nothing was visible except her own reflection and the darkness beyond. I missed it. So take the next one. There isn't... Maya started, then stopped. There was, actually. A morning flight. She could book it on her phone right now. Show up in Paris 12 hours late with her pride in tatters and her heart in her carry-on, but she'd be there. The gallery didn't care about Ethan. The Sen didn't care. Hemingway's cafe had survived worse than a canceled boyfriend. But her hand didn't reach for her phone. Her body felt too heavy, her mind too fractured. The idea of getting on another plane, of pretending to be fine, of smiling for the gallery owner and sipping wine and discussing aperture and composition when all she wanted to do was scream. Or don't, Lorraine said, reading her face. Go home. Burn his stuff. Eat ice cream. Watch terrible movies. Whatever you need. Maya nodded, but home felt impossible too. Home was the apartment she'd shared with Ethan, where his toothbrush still sat in the holder and his jacket still hung by the door. Home was the bed where she'd spent the last 3 months pretending not to notice him pulling away, pretending his late nights at work and his password-protected phone and his vague answers were normal relationship turbulence, not a slow-motion disaster. I don't know what I need, she said finally, and the honesty of it made her throat tight again. Lorraine studied her with those kind, tired eyes. Then sit here until you figure it out. I've got nowhere to be for another 4 hours. So Maya sat. She drank the water. She didn't order another whiskey. Around her, the airport kept moving, a living organism of arrivals and departures, hellos and goodbyes, people who knew where they were going. The screens above the bar cycled through departure times and gate numbers, an endless scroll of destinations she'd never see. She was staring at one, Flight 447 to Tokyo, Gate C7, boarding, when the man sat down 2 stools away. She noticed him peripherally at first. Dark suit, no tie, the kind of quietly expensive clothes that didn't announce themselves. He ordered something clear, vodka maybe, or gin, and sat without looking at his phone, which marked him as either very confident or very strange. In an airport at midnight, everyone stared at their phones. Maya went back to her water. She wasn't in the mood for conversation, especially not with a man who looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine spread for watches she couldn't pronounce. But then he spoke. You missed your flight. It wasn't a question. His voice was low, calm, with an accent she couldn't place. European maybe, but smoothed by years of somewhere else. She turned to look at him properly. He was younger than she'd thought. Early 30s, maybe? Sharp features that would have been severe except for the eyes, which were dark and steady and entirely too perceptive. He was looking at her the way a photographer looks at a subject, cataloging, assessing, seeing things she hadn't meant to show. Excuse me? Her tone had edges. Your boarding pass. He nodded toward the crumpled paper sticking out of her jacket pocket. Air France 332. It left 20 minutes ago. Maya pulled the boarding pass out, looked at it like she'd forgotten it existed. Yeah, I missed it. On purpose? Is that your business? He smiled faintly, not quite apologetic. No, but you're sitting at an airport bar at midnight looking like the world just ended, so I'm guessing the flight was the least of it. She should have told him to fuck off. Should have grabbed her bag and left. But something in his tone, not pity, not curiosity, just a statement of fact, made her answer honestly. Boyfriend bailed, via text, 40 minutes before takeoff. She lifted her glass in a mock toast. So yeah, the world didn't end, just my year. He considered this, taking a slow sip of his drink. What was in Paris? 3 weeks, a gallery showing, stupid dreams. She laughed bitterly. The usual. Dreams aren't stupid. They are when you build them around someone who doesn't show up. Then you build them around yourself. Maya turned to face him fully now, irritation sparking. You don't know anything about me. True, he said mildly, but I know what it looks like when someone's standing at a crossroads trying to decide which way to burn everything down. The accuracy of it stole her breath for a second. She set her glass down harder than necessary. And you're what? Some kind of airport philosopher? Handing out wisdom to drunk strangers? Not drunk, he observed. And I'm not a philosopher, just someone who recognizes the look. What look? The one that says you're about to make a decision you can't take back. Maya stared at him. His eyes were steady, unflinching, and there was something in them, something old and tired and knowing, that made her think he wasn't talking about her anymore. Why do you care? She asked. He was quiet for a moment, studying his drink like it held answers. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. Because 3 years ago, I stood in an airport just like this one. And I made a choice. And it ruined my life. And saved it. He looked up. Sometimes both things are true. The bartender refilled Maya's water, giving the man a look that suggested she knew him, or knew of him, or at least knew enough to be wary. He ignored it. I'm Dorian, he said. She shouldn't have answered. Every instinct, honed by years of her mother's warnings about strange men in public places, screamed at her to walk away. But something in his voice, something genuine beneath the expensive suit and the careful composure, made her stay. Maya. Maya. He repeated it like he was testing the shape of it. Where were you trying to go before the boyfriend imploded everything? Paris. Marais district. There's a gallery there, small, nothing fancy, but they wanted to show my photographs, portraits mostly. Street work. She stopped, shook her head. Doesn't matter now. Why not? Because I missed the flight, because I can't afford another ticket, because going alone feels... She stopped, surprised by the sudden pressure behind her eyes. I don't know. Wrong. Dorian was quiet for a long moment. Then, inexplicably, he smiled. Not the polite half-smile from before, but something real and slightly reckless. What if you didn't go to Paris? Maya blinked. What? What if you went somewhere else, somewhere you've never been, somewhere that has nothing to do with galleries or boyfriends or plans that just fell apart? Like where? New York. She laughed outright. I can't afford New York. I can barely afford Chicago rent. I have a plane, Dorian said. Private. It's leaving in 90 minutes. JFK, empty seats. He met her eyes. Come with me. The world tilted sideways. Maya's grip tightened on her glass. That's insane. Probably. I don't know you. Also true. You could be a serial killer. I could be, he acknowledged, but I'm not. And you know that, or you wouldn't still be sitting here. He was right, which was the most disturbing part. Something about him felt not safe, exactly, but solid. Real. Like the first steady thing she'd encountered in months of watching her relationship dissolve in slow motion. Why? She asked. Why would you offer that? Dorian looked away, toward the windows and the tarmac beyond. Because you look like someone who just watched their future collapse. And I've been there. And when I was there, no one offered me a way out. So I'm offering you one. No expectations, no strings. Just a seat on a plane to somewhere that isn't here. Maya's heart was hammering now. This was crazy. This was how horror movies started. Strange man, empty plane, midnight departure. Her mother's voice echoed in her head. Use your common sense, Maya. Men like that don't help women like you without wanting something. But the alternative was going home. To the apartment with Ethan's ghost in every room. To the bed she'd have to sleep in alone, knowing he was somewhere across the city with someone else. To the gallery email she'd have to send explaining why she couldn't make it after all. "I don't have anything," she said. "Just my carry-on." I was packed for Paris. Paris and New York aren't that different. Both overpriced. Both full of people pretending to be more important than they are. His mouth quirked. "You'll fit right in." "This is insane," she said again, but her hand was already reaching for her bag. "Probably," Dorian agreed. He stood, leaving cash on the bar. Too much cash, she noticed, enough to make Lorraine's eyebrows rise, and gestured toward the terminal. "Gates this way. You have 87 minutes to change your mind." Maya looked at Lorraine, searching for, what? Permission? A warning? The bartender just shrugged, a gesture that said, "Your life, your mistake." She stood. Her legs felt strange, disconnected, like they belonged to someone else, someone braver, someone stupider, someone who got on planes with handsome strangers at midnight because her boyfriend had blown up her life and she had nothing left to lose. They walked through the terminal in silence. Maya was hyper-aware of everything. The click of her boots on the polished floor, the weight of her carry-on, the people they passed who didn't look twice because why would they? Just two travelers heading to a gate. Nothing unusual about that, except Dorian didn't walk like a regular traveler. He walked like someone who owned the space he moved through, someone who'd never waited in a TSA line or fought for overhead bin space. People moved out of his way without seeming to realize they were doing it. They bypassed the main terminal entirely, taking a service elevator Maya hadn't known existed. Dorian produced a key card. Where had that come from? And swiped them through a door marked Authorized Personnel Only. "Should I be worried?" Maya asked as they stepped into a quiet corridor. "About what?" "That you have access to restricted areas of a major airport?" "Probably," Dorian said, and there was a hint of amusement in his voice that should have been comforting but somehow wasn't. The corridor opened onto a private terminal, smaller, quieter, with leather chairs and subtle lighting and absolutely none of the chaos of the main concourse. A woman in a crisp uniform looked up from her desk, smiled at Dorian with recognition that felt practiced. "Mr. Vance, right on schedule." "Always am. This is Maya. She'll be joining me to JFK." The woman's smile didn't falter, but something flickered in her eyes. Surprise, maybe, or assessment. "Of course. I'll have the crew prepare an additional service." "Just coffee," Dorian said, "and privacy." They walked across the tarmac toward a plane that looked like it belonged in a movie about people whose problems involved which yacht to take to which island. Small, sleek, with engines that hummed rather than roared. A flight attendant waited at the stairs, young and polished, and far too cheerful for 1 a.m. Maya stopped walking. Dorian turned back. "Second thoughts?" "About 1,000 of them." "That's fair." He studied her with those two knowing eyes. "Here's what I can promise you. The plane will land in New York. You'll have a hotel room with your name on it. Tomorrow morning, if you want to leave, you leave. No questions, no pressure. I'll even book your return flight." He paused. "But tonight you have a choice. Go back to Chicago and whatever's waiting there, or take a chance on something different." "Why are you doing this?" Maya asked again, because she still didn't understand, and understanding felt important. Dorian's expression shifted, something complicated passing across his features too quickly to name. "Because 5 days from now, you might be in a place where someone else's small kindness is the only thing standing between you and a very bad decision. And I'd rather be the person who offered it than the one who walked away." It was a strange answer, specific in a way that suggested history, but Maya was too tired and too raw to examine it closely. She climbed the stairs. The interior of the plane was exactly as ridiculous as she'd expected. Cream leather, polished wood, seats that looked more like furniture than airplane equipment. The flight attendant offered champagne. Maya asked for water. Dorian settled into a seat across the aisle, giving her space in a way that felt intentional. The engines changed pitch. The door sealed. And somewhere between the tarmac and the sky, Maya Ellery's life split cleanly in two, before and after. Before Ethan's text, before the plane to Paris departed without her, before she said yes to a stranger with sad eyes and a private jet and secrets he wore like a second skin. The moment the wheels left the ground, Maya felt it, the severance. Chicago falling away below her, all her carefully constructed plans dissolving into lights on a dark lake. She pressed her forehead against the window and watched the city shrink until it was just an idea. A place she used to live. A version of herself she'd left on the ground. Dorian didn't try to make conversation. He sat with his own drink, whiskey, neat, and stared at nothing, his mind clearly somewhere else. The flight attendant moved efficiently between them, offering things neither wanted. 40 minutes into the flight, Maya finally spoke. "What do you do?" The question came out more blunt than she'd intended. "For work. That you have a plane." Dorian's smile was brief and didn't reach his eyes. "Family business, import, export, logistics, very boring. Boring people don't usually have private jets. Boring wealthy people do." "You don't seem boring. You don't know me well enough to tell." It was a deflection, and they both knew it. Maya should have pressed, should have asked more questions, should have done a dozen things any reasonable person would do before getting on a plane with a stranger. But exhaustion was settling into her bones, and the adrenaline that had carried her this far was evaporating, leaving behind only the hollow ache of the worst day of her year. She must have dozed because the next thing she knew, the flight attendant was gently touching her shoulder. "Miss Ellery, we're landing in 15 minutes. The New York skyline spread below them like a promise or a threat. Too bright, too big, too much everything. Maya's stomach clenched. What was she doing? What had she done? The landing was smooth. Of course it was. The car waiting on the tarmac was exactly the kind of sleek black sedan that probably cost more than her annual salary. The driver nodded to Dorian without speaking, loaded Maya's single carry-on into the trunk with the gravity of someone handling precious cargo. The drive into Manhattan was quiet. Dorian sat beside her, scrolling through messages on his phone with an intensity that suggested whatever he'd left behind in Chicago was catching up with him. Maya watched the city roll past, bridges and tunnels and buildings that climbed toward a sky beginning to lighten with dawn. They stopped in front of a hotel in Tribeca, the kind of place where the doorman wore white gloves and the lobby smelled like money and discretion. Dorian walked her inside, spoke quietly to someone behind a desk Maya couldn't see, returned with a key card. 12th floor, he said, handing it to her. "Room's under your name. Stay as long as you want. Leave whenever you want. There's a number on the desk if you need anything." Maya took the card. Her hand was shaking. "I don't understand what's happening." "You're having a bad night," Dorian said simply. "And tomorrow it'll be a bad morning, and maybe a bad week. But eventually it won't be bad anymore. I'm just speeding up the timeline." "People don't do this," Maya said. "They don't just—" "I do." He met her eyes, and for the first time since the airport, she saw something beneath the composure, something sharp and wounded and barely contained. "Get some sleep, Maya. We'll talk tomorrow." He left before she could answer, disappearing into the pre-dawn darkness in the same black car that had delivered them. Maya stood in the lobby holding a key card to a hotel room she hadn't paid for, in a city she hadn't planned to visit, feeling like she'd somehow stepped through a mirror into a life that didn't quite fit. The room was on the 12th floor, just as he'd said. It was beautiful, floor-to-ceiling windows, a bed that looked like a cloud, a bathroom bigger than her kitchen in Chicago. Maya dropped her carry-on, walked to the window, and looked out at New York waking up beneath her. Her phone buzzed. She'd forgotten about it, forgotten it existed. A text from an unknown number. "Sleep. Tomorrow we'll figure out what comes next." Maya stared at it for a long time. Then she turned off her phone, climbed into the impossibly soft bed, and fell into a sleep so deep it felt like drowning. She woke to sunlight and sirens and the particular noise of a city that never stopped moving. For a disoriented moment, she couldn't remember where she was or how she'd gotten there. Then it came back in pieces. The airport, the text, the stranger with the plane, the hotel key pressed into her palm. Her phone said it was 11:47 a.m., exactly 12 hours since Ethan had destroyed her life. She showered because she didn't know what else to do. The water was too hot and too perfect, and she stood under it until her skin turned red, and her thoughts started to sharpen into something like clarity. She'd gotten on a plane with a stranger. She was in New York in a hotel room she couldn't afford. And Dorian Vance, whoever he really was, whatever family business actually meant, had offered her an escape from the wreckage of her life, and she'd taken it without question. Which meant she was either very brave or very stupid, and Maya wasn't sure which scared her more. She was toweling off when someone knocked on the door. She froze. The knock came again, firm, insistent. Maya pulled on the hotel robe, checked the peephole. A woman stood in the hallway, young, professional, holding a garment bag and a coffee cup. "Yes?" Maya called through the door. "Delivery for Miss Ellery, from Mr. Vance." Maya opened the door a crack. The woman smiled, held up the items. "He thought you might need these. Coffee's a latte, oat milk, vanilla, light ice. The clothes are a selection. If nothing fits, call the front desk and we'll send more options." She handed everything over before Maya could protest and disappeared down the hallway with the efficiency of someone who did this often enough for it to be routine. Maya closed the door, stared at the garment bag. Inside, 3 outfits, all her size, all simple and expensive in that way that didn't advertise itself. A note was pinned to one of the hangers. "Wear whatever you want. Burn the rest if it makes you feel better. Meet me at the address below at 2 p.m. if you're interested in seeing the city. If not, stay in the room and I'll check in tonight." D. The address was in the West Village, a restaurant Maya vaguely recognized from some article about places celebrities pretended to eat normal food. She should have been angry, should have felt manipulated or patronized or like a charity case. But the coffee was perfect, and the clothes fit. And for the first time in months, someone was anticipating her needs instead of expecting her to manage theirs. At 1:45 p.m., Maya stepped out of the hotel wearing dark jeans and a silk shirt that probably cost more than her camera, and hailed a cab because she still had some pride left. The restaurant was exactly as absurd as she'd expected. Small, intimate, with the kind of quiet that money buys. Dorian sat at a corner table, reading something on his phone. He looked different in daylight. Older, maybe, or just more real. The expensive suit was gone, replaced by dark pants and a sweater that suggested he owned mirrors and knew how to use them. He stood when she approached. "You came." "The coffee was really good," Maya said. He smiled, a real one this time. "Sit. We'll start with that and work our way up." They ordered food Maya didn't taste and talked about nothing important. Chicago versus New York, the best neighborhoods for photographs. Whether pizza was better thin or deep dish. Surface conversation that carefully avoided anything that mattered. It was only when the plates were cleared and they were left with coffee and the afternoon light slanting through the windows that Dorian leaned back and studied her with that unnerving directness. "You have questions." "About 1,000, Maya admitted. "Ask." "Why did you bring me here?" Dorian was quiet for a long moment. "Honestly, I'm not entirely sure. I saw someone at a crossroads. Someone about to make a decision out of pain instead of purpose. And I know what that looks like because I've been that person." He paused. "Maybe I wanted to see if offering a different option would change anything." "For me or for you?" "Both, probably." Maya processed this. "What was your crossroads?" His expression shuddered slightly. "That's a longer conversation, and one I'm not sure you want to have on day 2. Try me." He looked at her for a long time, weighing something she couldn't see. Then he said very quietly, 3 years ago, my father asked me to do something I thought was unforgivable. I said yes. And that decision has defined everything since." "Do you regret it?" "Every day." He picked up his coffee, set it down without drinking. "But it also made me who I am, and I'm still figuring out if that's worth the cost." Maya understood that more than she wanted to. The boyfriend, Ethan, he wasn't a good person. I knew that. For months I knew. But I kept making excuses because leaving felt harder than staying, even when staying was killing me. And now? Now I'm in New York with a stranger who bought me coffee and expensive clothes, and I still don't know if I'm running toward something or just away. "Maybe both," Dorian said. "Maybe that's okay." They sat in the kind of comfortable silence that usually took weeks to build. Outside, the city moved past the windows, people with purpose, with destinations, with lives that made sense. Maya's phone buzzed. She ignored it. It buzzed again. Dorian raised an eyebrow. Someone persistent. She pulled it out reluctantly. 6 texts from Ethan, each more desperate than the last. "Where are you? Maya, please, we need to talk. I made a mistake. Don't do anything stupid." She showed Dorian the screen. "He thinks I'm being dramatic." "Are you?" "Probably." She typed back, I'm in New York. Don't contact me again. Hit send before she could reconsider. Blocked the number a second time for good measure. When she looked up, Dorian was watching her with something that might have been approval. What? She asked. Nothing, just most people can't do that. Cut clean. They hesitate. I'm good at hesitating, Maya said. Spent the last 6 months doing it. I'm trying something different. How's it feel? Terrifying. She smiled despite herself. Also kind of good. Dorian's phone buzzed then, not a text, but a call. He glanced at the screen and something in his expression changed, hardened. I need to take this, he said, standing. 2 minutes. He walked outside and through the window Maya watched him answer. Whatever the conversation was, it wasn't good. His posture shifted, shoulders tight, free hand clenched at his side. He spoke briefly, hung up, and stood for a moment staring at nothing before returning inside. Everything okay? Maya asked. Work, he said shortly. It's fine. It wasn't fine. She could see it in the set of his jaw, the way his eyes had gone somewhere else. But they'd known each other less than 24 hours, so she didn't push. They left the restaurant as the afternoon tipped toward evening. Dorian offered to show her the city, and Maya, who still had no plan beyond tomorrow, no ticket home, no idea what she was doing, said yes. They walked through the West Village, through Washington Square Park, where street musicians competed for attention and students sprawled on blankets pretending to study. Dorian pointed out details she would have missed. The history embedded in brownstone facades, the ghost of the city that used to exist beneath the one that did now. He was a good guide, knowledgeable without being pedantic, comfortable with silence. They stopped at a bookstore that smelled like old paper and ambition, and Maya found herself relaxing in a way she hadn't in months, maybe years. It was almost normal, almost like two people getting to know each other, almost like the kind of day that didn't end badly. They were walking back toward her hotel as twilight settled over the city when Maya noticed them. 2 men, different clothes, different builds, but walking with the same purpose 50 feet behind them. When Dorian turned a corner, they turned. When he stopped to look at a storefront, they stopped too. Dorian, she said quietly. We're being followed. He didn't turn around. Didn't react at all except for the slightest tightening around his eyes. I know. You, what? Keep walking. Don't look back. Fear spiked cold through her chest. Who are they? No one you need to worry about. That's not an answer. They turned onto a busier street. More people, more witnesses. The men behind them maintained their distance, professional in a way that made Maya's skin crawl. Dorian pulled out his phone, sent a quick text. Change of plans. We're going to get in a car in about 30 seconds. Don't ask questions. Just move when I say. Dorian, what the hell? A black SUV pulled up to the curb ahead of them. The back door opened. Dorian's hand was on Maya's elbow, firm but not rough, guiding her forward. Get in. Every instinct screamed at her not to. But the men behind them were closer now, and Dorian's face had the kind of tension that said whatever was happening, it was real, and it was bad. She got in the SUV. Dorian slid in beside her and the car pulled into traffic before the door fully closed. Maya twisted to look out the back window. The 2 men stood on the sidewalk, watching them leave, and one of them was speaking into a phone. Someone want to tell me what just happened? Maya's voice came out higher than she intended. Dorian was staring straight ahead, his jaw set. I'm sorry. This wasn't supposed to happen. What wasn't supposed to happen? Who were those people? Surveillance. Probably hired by... He stopped, shook his head. It doesn't matter. You're safe. Safe from what? She grabbed his arm, forced him to look at her. Dorian, what the hell is going on? He met her eyes, and what she saw there made her stomach drop. Not fear, something worse. Resignation. The family business I mentioned? It's not boring. It's not logistics. He took a breath. It's complicated and dangerous. And I thought I could keep you separate from it. I was wrong. Maya's mouth had gone dry. Dangerous how? Before he could answer, the driver spoke. Mr. Vance, we have a problem. Dorian leaned forward. What kind of problem? Your hotel. Someone left a package at the front desk, addressed to Ms. Ellery. Every muscle in Dorian's body tensed. Description? Small, unmarked, security flagged it. Don't touch it. Get bomb squad. It's not a bomb, the driver interrupted. They already checked. It's a photograph. Silence filled the car. Maya felt like she was falling, like the ground had opened beneath her and there was nothing to grab. Show me, Dorian said. The driver handed back a phone. The photograph on the screen was crystal clear, time-stamped from that morning. It was Maya, walking out of the hotel, wearing the clothes Dorian had sent, her face perfectly visible, her location undeniable. Across the bottom, written in red marker, "We know where she is." Maya couldn't breathe. "Who?" "Take us to the safe house," Dorian told the driver. Then to Maya, his voice gentler than she'd heard it. "I need you to stay calm. Can you do that?" She nodded because what else was there to do? "Good. Because in about 5 minutes, I'm going to explain everything, and you're going to wish I'd left you in Chicago." The SUV accelerated through Manhattan traffic, and Maya Ellery, photographer, ordinary person, someone who just wanted to go to Paris and forget about her shitty boyfriend, realized with perfect, terrible clarity that she'd stepped into something she didn't understand and couldn't escape. And the man beside her, the stranger who'd offered her salvation at midnight in an airport, was either her only protection or the reason she needed it. She wouldn't know which until it was too late to matter. The safe house wasn't what Maya expected. She'd pictured something from a movie, concrete walls, steel doors, the kind of place that announced its purpose. Instead, the SUV pulled up to a residential building in Brooklyn, brownstone exterior, flower boxes in the windows, the kind of place where families lived and complained about parking. Dorian led her inside without speaking. His hand stayed on her lower back, a pressure point that was half guidance, half warning. The driver, a man whose name she still didn't know, followed 3 steps behind, scanning the street before closing the door. The apartment was on the 3rd floor, sparse furniture, clean lines, windows covered with blinds that looked bulletproof. Maya stood in the center of the living room while Dorian moved through the space with practiced efficiency, checking rooms, testing locks, his movements economical and precise. "Sit," he said finally, gesturing to a couch that looked like it had never been sat on. Maya didn't move. "I want answers, now, and you'll get them." He poured water from a pitcher on the counter, handed her a glass she didn't take, set it on the table instead. "But first I need to make sure we're secure." "Secure from what?" Her voice cracked on the last word. "Who left that photo? Who were those men following us? What the hell is happening?" Dorian stopped moving, turned to face her. In the harsh overhead light, she could see the exhaustion etched into his features, the shadow of something heavier than lack of sleep. "My family," he said quietly, "runs an organization. We move money. We move product. We control territory. In polite company, we call it import-export. In truth, it's a criminal network that's existed for 3 generations." The words landed like stones. Maya's knees felt weak, but she locked them. "You're telling me you're... what? Mafia? That's an Italian word for an Italian problem. We're not Italian." He moved to the window, peered through the blinds without touching them. "But the principle's the same. Power, control, blood. And you brought me into this?" The anger came fast and clean, burning through the fear. "You put me on a plane. You put me in a hotel. You walked me around the city like some kind of... what? Fucking bait?" "No." He turned sharply. "I brought you here because you were alone at an airport at midnight, looking like you wanted to disappear. I gave you an out. That's all. Except it wasn't all, was it? Because now someone's taking my picture and leaving it at hotels and following us through the streets. Because they know who I am." His voice cut through hers, hard as glass. "And they saw you with me. And in this world, that's enough to make you leverage." Maya's laugh was bitter. "Leverage? Great. So I'm what? Collateral damage? You're someone I'm trying to keep alive." The bluntness of it silenced her. She sank onto the couch, her legs finally giving out. The water glass sat on the table, condensation beating on the sides. She picked it up just to have something to hold. Dorian crossed to the opposite chair, sat forward with his elbows on his knees. 3 days ago, my father's organization had a problem. A shipment went missing, $5 million in product, just gone. Someone inside our network stole it. Someone close enough to know routes, timing, security. What does that have to do with me? Nothing, except my father thinks I'm involved. And when I disappeared to Chicago instead of staying in New York to handle it, He assumed I was running, or meeting with buyers, or a dozen other scenarios that end with me betraying the family. Maya pressed her palm against her forehead. So you're telling me you're under suspicion for stealing from your own criminal organization? Yes. And bringing a random woman back to New York makes that look better? How? It doesn't. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that made him look younger, more human. I wasn't thinking clearly. I saw someone who needed help, and He stopped. I told myself I was doing a good thing. Maybe I was just being selfish. Selfish how? He met her eyes. Because for 12 hours, I got to be someone other than Dorian Vance, heir to a legacy I never wanted. I got to sit in an airport bar and talk to someone who didn't know my name or what it meant, and that felt, he swallowed, normal. The silence that followed was thick with things neither of them could say. Outside, a siren wailed past, Dopplering into nothing. Maya's phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out automatically. Unknown number. She almost declined, then something made her answer. Maya Ellery? The voice was male, smooth, with an accent similar to Dorian's, but harder at the edges. Who is this? A friend. I saw you at L'Artisan this afternoon. Beautiful restaurant. You looked happy. Ice flooded her veins. She looked at Dorian, saw him go rigid. How did you get this number? The same way I got your hotel room number. The same way I know you're wearing a black jacket you didn't pack for Paris. A pause. Put Dorian on. She held out the phone wordlessly. Dorian took it, his jaw set. This is a mistake, Nikolai. Is it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've picked up a new friend right when you should be focused on family business. She's nobody. Leave her out of this. Nobody? The voice. Nikolai laughed. Then you won't mind if I send someone to verify that? Just a conversation. Very polite. Touch her and what, Dorian? You'll do what your father's already planning? We both know how this ends. The line went dead. Dorian stared at the phone for a long moment before setting it down with careful precision. When he looked up, his eyes were darker than she'd seen them. Who was that? Maya asked, though she already knew it was bad. Nikolai Petrov, my father's enforcer. The man who makes problems disappear. He stood, paced to the window. If he's involved, it means my father's moved past suspicion. He's committed to a course of action. What course of action? Dorian didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was flat. In our world, betrayal is answered one way, blood for blood. My father thinks I stole from him, which means he'll take everything I value until I confess or die. Whichever comes first. And I'm, what? A thing you value? You're a person I was seen with. That's enough. Maya stood, her hands shaking. I want to leave. Now. Put me on a plane back to Chicago. Give me money for a hotel. I don't care. Just get me out of this. I can't. What do you mean you can't? Because Nikolai knows who you are. Which means his people know. Which means the moment you step into an airport or a train station, they'll be waiting. He turned to face her. You're safer here. With me. I can protect you. You brought me into this. I know. The admission came quiet and raw. I know, and I'm sorry. But we're here now, and I need you to trust me long enough to fix it. Trust you? Maya's voice rose. I don't even know you. I met you 15 hours ago at a fucking airport bar. For all I know, this is... She gestured wildly. Some kind of game, some criminal bullshit where I'm the pawn and you're it. I'm the idiot who thought he could have one normal conversation before his entire life imploded. Dorian's voice cut through hers. That's who I am, an idiot. They stared at each other across the small room, breathing hard. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. Everything in her screamed to run, to find a door and just go. Consequences be damned. But the photo flashed in her mind. Her face. Her location. The red marker message. We know where she is. She sank back onto the couch, her head in her hands. This isn't real. This can't be real. Dorian crouched in front of her, not touching, just close enough that she could feel his presence. I'm going to get you out of this. I promise. Your promises don't mean anything. Then judge me by my actions. He stood, pulled out his phone. I'm calling in help. People who owe me. We'll move you somewhere Nikolai can't find, set up a new identity if we have to, get you on a flight to anywhere you want. But tonight, you stay here where I know you're safe." Maya looked up at him. "Why do you care? If I'm nobody, if I'm just someone you met, why not just let them have me?" The question seemed to hit him physically. He flinched, then caught himself. "Because you didn't ask for this. And I did. I made the choice that put you here. That makes you my responsibility." "I'm not your responsibility. I'm not your anything." "I know." He was quiet for a moment. "But I'm all you've got right now. So we work with that." Before she could answer, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and something in his expression shifted. "I need to take this. Don't leave this apartment. The driver's outside. His name is Marcus. He's armed and he's loyal. If anything happens, you go to him. Understood? Dorian?" He was already moving to the bedroom, the door closing behind him. Maya heard his voice through the walls, muffled but urgent. She sat in the silence of the safe house, in a stranger's apartment in a city she didn't know, with a phone full of missed calls from a life that felt like it belonged to someone else. Her carry-on sat by the door, still packed for Paris. 3 weeks of carefully chosen outfits, her camera equipment, the printed confirmation for the gallery showing that would start in 4 days without her. Her camera. Maya unzipped the bag, pulled out her Canon. The weight of it in her hands was the first familiar thing she'd touched in hours. She turned it on, scrolled through the last photos she'd taken. Chicago, the lakefront. Ethan laughing at something she'd said, his head thrown back, unaware she was documenting him. That was 3 weeks ago. Back when she still thought love meant something. She deleted the photo. Then she deleted the next one. And the next. Every image with Ethan's face in it, gone. The mechanical satisfaction of pressing the button, watching them disappear, was the closest thing to control she'd felt since the airport. When she was done, only landscapes remained. Buildings, light, the impersonal beauty of a city that didn't care who was photographing it. The bedroom door opened. Dorian emerged looking worse than when he'd gone in. His hair was mussed like he'd been running his hands through it, his shirt untucked. He crossed to the kitchen, poured himself 2 fingers of something amber from a bottle that had no label. "Bad news?" Maya asked. He drank half the glass before answering. "The shipment turned up." "That's good, right?" "It turned up in a warehouse owned by one of my father's competitors, with my signature on the transfer papers." Maya's stomach dropped. "Someone forged..." "Obviously, but try explaining that to my father when the evidence is sitting in front of him and $5 million is in enemy hands." He finished the drink. "I have 48 hours to prove I didn't do it, or what?" He looked at her, and the exhaustion in his eyes was bone deep. "Or Nikolai gets the order to make sure I don't do it again. They'd kill you." Wasn't a question. "They'd make an example. There's a difference." Maya set her camera down carefully. "How do you prove something you didn't do?" "Find out who did. Trace the money. Get evidence that's harder to deny than forged paperwork." He poured another drink, offered her the glass. She shook her head. "I have contacts. People who owe me favors. If I can get to them before Nikolai gets to me." A sound cut him off, not loud. A scrape maybe, or a footstep, barely audible through the walls. Dorian's entire body changed. He set the glass down without a sound, moved to a closet, pulled out something Maya couldn't see. When he turned back, there was a gun in his hand. "Get in the bathroom," he said quietly. "Lock the door. Don't come out until I tell you." "Dorian, now!" The command in his voice moved her before thought could. She grabbed her bag, her camera, and locked herself in the windowless bathroom. In the darkness, with her back pressed against the cold tile, she heard movement in the apartment. Footsteps. Low voices. The particular silence that means violence is about to happen. Then gunfire. 3 shots, fast and precise. A shout. Something heavy hitting the floor. Maya's hands flew to her mouth, stifling the scream that wanted to tear out of her throat. Silence. Then Dorian's voice, strained but controlled. "Maya, it's safe. Come out." She didn't move. "Maya?" Louder now. "I need you to see something." Her hands were shaking so badly it took 3 tries to unlock the door. She pushed it open slowly. The living room looked like a crime scene because it was one. A man lay face down near the entrance, blood pooling beneath him. Another was slumped against the wall, conscious but barely, holding his shoulder where red was seeping through his fingers. Dorian stood between them, the gun still in his hand, his breathing controlled but quick. There was blood on his shirt. Not his, she realized, with a dizzy kind of relief. They came through the fire escape, he said, gesturing to the window now hanging open. 2 of them. Nikolai's moving faster than I thought. Maya couldn't look away from the man on the floor. The stillness of him, the absolute absence of life. Is he? Yes. You killed him. He was going to kill you. Dorian crossed to her, put his hands on her shoulders. Look at me. Maya, look at me. She forced her eyes up. We need to move. Now. More will come. Where? I don't know yet. Somewhere Nikolai can't predict. He was already moving, grabbing a bag from a closet, throwing things into it. Take only what you need. We have 3 minutes before their backup arrives. Maya's brain felt slow, disconnected from her body. She watched herself move, watched her hands grab her camera and her phone, the detachment of shock making everything feel distant. The man against the wall spoke, his voice wet and pained. You're dead, Vance. You and the girl. 48 hours or 48 minutes, doesn't matter. You're both dead. Dorian ignored him, pulling Maya toward the door. They took the stairs down 3 at a time, Marcus meeting them at the bottom with the SUV already running. They were inside and moving before Maya's brain caught up. Where to? Marcus asked. The marina, slip 47. They'll have eyes there. I know, we're not staying, just picking up insurance. The drive was a blur of streets Maya didn't recognize, through neighborhoods that got progressively rougher until the buildings gave way to warehouses and the smell of water. The marina was small, industrial, nothing like the tourist traps she'd imagined. Dorian was out before the SUV fully stopped, pulling Maya with him. They moved between boats that looked like they hadn't sailed in years, past docks that creaked under their weight. He stopped at a slip, holding a boat that was bigger than the others, 40 feet maybe, sleek and dark, and clearly expensive. Get on, he said. Dorian, I don't get on. She climbed aboard on shaking legs. Dorian moved through the cabin with the same efficiency he'd shown at the safe house, checking compartments, testing equipment. He emerged with a duffel bag and a laptop. What's in there, Ike? Maya asked. Leverage. He unzipped it enough for her to see. Documents, drives, bundles of cash. Evidence of every illegal thing my father's done in the last decade. Shipments, bribes, bodies, everything. Why do you have that? Because I've always known it might come to this. He closed the bag. And because if I'm going down, I'm taking him with me. The boat's engine growled to life. Marcus appeared at the helm, steering them out of the slip with practiced ease. The lights of the city receded behind them, replaced by darkness and the cold smell of the ocean. Maya sat on the deck, her arms wrapped around herself, watching New York shrink in the distance. 48 hours ago, she'd been in Chicago packing for Paris, worried about whether her photos were good enough for the gallery, whether Ethan would embarrass her in front of the curator. Normal problems. Human problems. Now she was on a boat in the middle of the night, with a man who'd just killed someone, fleeing from criminals who wanted them both dead, and she didn't even know what day it was anymore. Dorian sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. He didn't say anything, just handed her his jacket when the wind picked up. She took it because she was cold, not because she forgave him. Where are we going? She asked finally. Connecticut. There's the house. Belonged to my mother before she died. My father doesn't know about it. She kept it separate from the family. Is it safe? Safer than here. That's not an answer. He looked at her, and in the dim light from the cabin, his face was all sharp angles and shadows. Nothing's safe anymore, Maya. We're past that. Now it's just damage control. I want to go home. I know. I want this to not be happening. I know that too. She turned to face him fully. Tell me the truth. Can you actually fix this? Or are we just delaying the inevitable? Dorian was quiet for a long time. I can try. I have evidence. I have contacts. If I can get to the right people, prove someone set me up, maybe. Maybe it's enough. And if it's not? He didn't answer, which was answer enough. The boat cut through dark water and Maya pulled his jacket tighter around herself. The fabric smelled like expensive cologne and gunpowder. She should have been disgusted, should have thrown it back in his face, but it was warm and she was cold and nothing made sense anymore. "The man you shot," she said. "Did you know him?" "Yes. His name was Victor. He worked for my father for 15 years. I knew his wife's name, his daughter's birthday." Dorian's voice was flat. "He still would have killed you without hesitation. Does that make it easier?" "No." They sat in silence as the boat rocked beneath them. Maya thought about Victor's daughter, who would wake up tomorrow in a world where her father was gone. She thought about Ethan, probably asleep next to someone new, oblivious to the disaster he'd set in motion by sending a text message. She thought about her own father, dead 6 years now, and wondered what he'd say if he could see her now. Probably something about making better choices. Her phone buzzed. She almost ignored it, then thought better of it. Unknown number again. This time she didn't answer, just showed Dorian the screen. He took it, frowned at the caller ID. "Don't recognize the number." It buzzed again, then a third time. On the fourth, Dorian answered, putting it on speaker. "Who is this? Is that any way to greet an old friend?" The voice was male, American, with the kind of smooth confidence that came from never being told no. "Though I suppose we're not friends anymore, are we, Dorian?" Dorian's expression went carefully blank. "Ethan." Maya's blood turned to ice. She grabbed the phone. "How did you get this number?" "Maya, finally! I've been trying to reach you for 2 days. Where the hell are you?" "That's none of your—" "You're in New York." "With him." Ethan's voice had an edge now. "Do you have any idea what you've gotten yourself into?" "How do you know where I am?" But even as she asked, pieces were falling into place. The timing, the text, the sudden abandonment. "You set me up. I saved you. I got you away from Chicago before things got complicated. By breaking up with me? By leaving me at the airport? By making sure you weren't there when they came looking." Ethan's voice dropped. "Maya, listen to me carefully. Dorian Vance is not who you think he is. His family. I know who his family is." "Do you? Do you know what they do? What he's done?" Dorian reached for the phone. Maya pulled it back. "Why do you care, Ethan? You made it pretty clear I wasn't your problem anymore." "Because you were never supposed to be in New York. You were supposed to be in Paris, safe, away from all of this." "Away from what?" Silence on the other end. Then, "I work for Dorian's father. Have for 2 years, corporate side, clean money, but I know how it works. I know what happens to people who get in the way." His breath was audible over the line. 3 months ago, Dorian started asking questions, digging into shipments, looking for discrepancies. I reported it because that's my job. And then you showed me those tickets to Paris, and I realized if you were with me when things went sideways, you'd be collateral. So I ended it. I made you hate me. I made sure you'd be on that plane. Except I wasn't on the plane. No. You got on his instead, and now you're exactly where I tried to keep you from being. Maya looked at Dorian. His face was stone, but she could see the muscles in his jaw working. "You're lying," she said. "This is some kind of— Ask him about the warehouse in Red Hook. Ask him why $5 million in product ended up in Marcus Volkov's hands. Ask him who signed those transfer papers." "Someone forged—" "Did they? Or is that what he told you?" Ethan's voice was urgent now. "Maya, I know him. I know how he operates. He's been planning this for months. The only question is whether you're part of it or just another loose end he'll tie up when this is over." Dorian grabbed the phone then, his patience gone. "You finished?" "Just getting started." "You think my tip-off is the only reason your father knows? There's a whole file on you, Dorian. Every meeting, every transaction, every person you've talked to in the last 6 months, including her." The line went dead. Maya and Dorian stared at the phone like it might explode. Marcus appeared from the cabin, his expression grim. "We've got a problem." "Another one?" Dorian's voice was acid. "Coast Guard, 200 yards out and closing. They're signaling us to stop." "Coast Guard doesn't work for my father." "They do if he pays them enough." Dorian swore, a vicious string of words in a language Maya didn't recognize. He turned to Marcus. "How fast can we go?" "Not fast enough. They've got a cutter." "Then we don't run." Dorian's mind was working. She could see it in his eyes. "We comply. Let them board. They're looking for contraband. They won't find anything." The bag Goes overboard. Weight it and drop it. That's our leverage. Our leverage doesn't matter if we're dead. Dorian grabbed the duffel, started pulling out documents, shoving them into waterproof pouches. Take these, hide them. The rest goes down. Marcus moved fast, and within 90 seconds the duffel was over the side, sinking into dark water. The documents were distributed, some in the cabin's hidden compartments, some on their persons. By the time the Coast Guard pulled alongside, they were sitting on deck looking like civilians on a late-night cruise. 2 officers boarded. Young, armed, nervous in the way of people following orders they don't fully understand. This is a routine safety inspection, the taller one said, though his hand was on his weapon. We need to check your registration and search the vessel. Of course. Dorian's voice was cooperative, easy. Registration's in the cabin. I'll get it. Stay here. We'll get it. They disappeared below deck. Maya sat perfectly still, her heart hammering so hard she was sure they could hear it. Dorian's hand found hers under the table, squeezed once. Not comfort, warning. The officers returned 5 minutes later. The taller one held a small plastic bag. What's this? Dorian barely glanced at it. Never seen it before. It was in the engine compartment. Cocaine, about 3 ounces. Then someone planted it. Sure they did. The officer pulled out handcuffs. Dorian Vance, you're under arrest for possession of I know my rights. I also know you're not real Coast Guard. The officer's expression didn't change, but his partner's hand moved closer to his weapon. That's a serious accusation. So is manufacturing evidence. Dorian stood slowly, hands visible. Who sent you? Nikolai? My father directly? I don't know what you're talking about. Then you won't mind if I call my lawyer, have him verify your badge numbers. The 2 men exchanged a look. The shorter one spoke for the first time. That won't be necessary. He pulled his weapon. Maya's scream died in her throat as Marcus moved faster than should have been possible for a man his size. He had his own gun out, trained on the shorter officer's chest. Drop it, Marcus said quietly. You drop yours. 3 guns, 4 people, a boat rocking gently in dark water. Maya's entire body was ice. Dorian spoke, his voice calm despite the weapon pointed at his chest. You don't want to do this. You pull that trigger, you start a war. My father won't protect you for that. Your father gave us the order to arrest me, not execute me. Orders change. The shorter officer's finger tightened on the trigger, and Maya saw it happen in slow motion. Marcus adjusting his aim, Dorian starting to move, her own body frozen in place. Then a voice cracked through the radio on the taller officer's belt. Stand down. Bring them in alive. Repeat, alive. The shorter officer's jaw clenched, but he lowered his weapon. You're coming with us. Where? The old pier, South Street. Your father wants to talk. And if I refuse? Then we sink this boat and you don't get a choice. Dorian looked at Maya. She could see the calculation in his eyes. Fight here and probably die. Or comply and maybe find an opening later. We'll come, he said. But she stays. She's not part of this. She's with you. That makes her part of it. She's nobody. Tell that to your father. They were escorted onto the Coast Guard cutter at gunpoint. Marcus first, then Dorian, then Maya. The boat they'd been on was tied off and left behind, evidence of a chase that would be erased by morning. The ride to shore took 20 minutes. No one spoke. Maya sat between Marcus and Dorian, her hands shaking so badly she had to sit on them. This was it. The point where running stopped and consequences started. The old pier was exactly that. Rotting wood, rusted metal, the kind of place where bodies ended up when people needed them, disappeared. 2 black SUVs waited in the darkness, engines running. They were separated. Marcus to one vehicle, Maya and Dorian to another. As they were pushed toward the car, Dorian leaned close enough to whisper, Whatever happens, whatever you see, don't react, don't cry, don't beg. They see weakness, they'll use it. Dorian, just survive, that's all that matters. The SUV door opened. A man sat in the back seat, older, with Dorian's features sharpened by decades and cruelty. He looked at Maya with eyes that held no warmth whatsoever. So this is the girl, he said. His accent was thicker than Dorian's, old world bleeding through. The photographer from Chicago, the one who's caused so much trouble. Father, quiet. The word cracked like a whip. You'll speak when I ask you a question. Until then, you listen. They got in. The door closed. The SUV started moving. Dorian's father, she didn't know his name, didn't want to know it, studied her with the dispassion of someone examining an insect. "Do you know why you're here, girl?" Maya's voice came out steadier than she felt. "Because your son made a mistake." "No, because you're the mistake." He smiled, and it was the coldest thing she'd ever seen. "My son has always been soft, sentimental. It's his greatest weakness. I've tried to train it out of him, but—" He gestured dismissively. "Some flaws run too deep. I'm not involved in whatever he's accused of." "Of course not. You're just a civilian. Wrong place, wrong time. Bad luck." He leaned forward. "But bad luck has a way of becoming leverage in the right hands. And right now, you're worth more to me than your weight in gold. I'm not— You're whatever I say you are." The SUV stopped. They were at another warehouse, this one bigger, darker. Men stood outside with the kind of stillness that meant violence was always an option. They were pulled from the vehicle. Dorian tried to stay close to her, but guards separated them, dragging him toward a different entrance. Maya struggled, her survival instinct finally kicking in. "Dorian!" He looked back, and the fear in his eyes was the most human thing she'd seen from him. "It's going to be okay," he called. "I'll fix this." A fist to his stomach cut him off. He doubled over, was hauled through a door that slammed shut behind him. Maya was pushed in the opposite direction, through corridors that smelled like rust and mold, into a room that was empty except for a chair bolted to the floor and a drain in the center. The door closed, locked. She was alone. The room was cold. Not the kind of cold that made you shiver and look for a sweater, but the deep, bone-settling cold of a place designed to break people down. Maya stood in the center, her arms wrapped around herself, staring at the drain in the floor and trying not to think about what it was for. She'd been alone for, 20 minutes? An hour? Time had lost meaning somewhere between the boat and the warehouse. Her phone was gone, taken when they'd pulled her from the SUV. Her camera, too. The only thing she had left was Dorian's jacket, still wrapped around her shoulders, and even that felt like a liability now. The door opened without warning. 2 men entered. Not the guards who'd brought her here. These were different. Older. One wore a suit that probably cost more than her rent. The other was built like violence, scarred hands and dead eyes. They didn't introduce themselves. The one in the suit pulled out a phone, tapped something, and set it on the floor between them. A video started playing. It was Dorian. In a room similar to this one, tied to a chair, blood running from his nose. His father stood behind him, one hand on his shoulder, in a gesture that might have looked paternal, if not for the gun in his other hand. "Tell her," the father said on the video. Dorian's eyes were swollen, but he looked directly at the camera. "Maya, whatever they tell you, don't believe them. I'm going to—" The father hit him, not with the gun, just his fist, hard enough that Dorian's head snapped to the side. "Try again. With the truth this time." Dorian spit blood onto the concrete. "There is no truth. You made your decision before I even got here. I made my decision the moment you stole from me." "I didn't—" Another hit. This one with the gun. Dorian's cheek split open, blood pouring down his face. Maya's hands flew to her mouth, bile rising in her throat. The man in the suit watching her didn't react, just let the video play. "Last chance," the father said. "Tell the girl what you are. Tell her why she's here." Dorian looked at the camera again. His voice was thick with blood. "I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry. You were never supposed to—" He stopped, swallowed. "My father thinks I betrayed him. He's wrong. But he won't believe that until I'm dead, and you—" His eyes closed. "You're just proof that I'm still human, that I still have something worth taking." The father leaned down, whispered something Maya couldn't hear. Dorian's eyes opened, and the expression in them was pure devastation. "No," he said. "Not that. Anything but—" "Then confess." "I can't confess to something I didn't do." The father straightened, raised the gun, and pointed it at Dorian's head. "Then we're done here." The video cut to black. Maya was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. The man in the suit picked up the phone, pocketed it. "That was taken 30 minutes ago," he said. His accent was similar to Dorian's father, but smoother, corporate. "Your friend is still alive, for now." "What do you want?" Maya's voice came out broken. Information. You've been with Dorian for 3 days. You've talked, traveled. He must have told you something. We talked about Chicago, photography, nothing about... Where did he hide the shipping manifests? I don't know the account numbers for the offshore transfers. The names of his contacts in the Volkov organization. I don't know, she was shouting now, her control fracturing. I met him in an airport. He offered me a ride to New York. That's all. I'm not part of whatever he's... The violent one moved fast. His hand closed around her throat, not squeezing, just holding. A promise of what could come. You're lying, the suit said calmly. People don't get on private planes with strangers. Not without a reason. So what was yours? Money? Sex? Were you planning to blackmail him? No, Maya's breath hitched. My boyfriend broke up with me. I was alone. Dorian was kind, that's all. Kind. The suit smiled. Dorian Vance has never been kind in his life. Calculating, yes. Strategic. But kind? You're either lying or stupid. Maybe both, Maya managed. The hand on her throat loosened slightly. The suit pulled out another phone, hers, she realized. You've been getting calls from someone named Ethan. Her stomach dropped. He's my ex. He has nothing to do with... He works for Dorian's father, corporate accounting, very smart, very useful. The suit scrolled through her messages. He's been trying to reach you, says you're in danger, says Dorian is using you. I know, he told me. And yet you stayed with Dorian. Because I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice. The suit set the phone down. Ethan wants to help you. He says if you cooperate, he can get you out of this. Safe passage back to Chicago. Witness protection if necessary. All you have to do is tell us where Dorian hid the evidence. Maya's laugh was bitter and hollow. I don't know where anything is. I've been with him for 3 days and I still don't know his middle name. You think he trusted me with evidence? The two men exchanged a look. The violent one released her throat, stepped back. The suit made a gesture, and they both left without another word. The door locked behind them. Maya sank to the floor, her legs giving out. She pressed her palms against the concrete, trying to ground herself in something real. The cold, the rough texture, the distant sound of machinery somewhere in the warehouse. This was insane. This was a nightmare. Any second she'd wake up in her Chicago apartment with Ethan snoring beside her, and all of this would be some stress-induced fever dream about commitment and control, and... The door opened again. She looked up, expecting the suit or the violent one or Dorian's father. It was Ethan. He looked exactly like she remembered. Sandy hair, easy smile, the kind of handsome that photographed well but never quite reached his eyes. He wore slacks and a button-down, corporate casual, like he'd just stepped out of a meeting about quarterly projections. Maya. His voice was soft, concerned. Jesus Christ, are you okay? She stared at him, her brain struggling to process. What are you doing here? Getting you out. He crouched down, not touching her, giving her space. I told you on the phone. I work for Dorian's father. When I heard they had you, I came straight here. To save me. Yes. After you broke up with me via text. After you let me think you'd moved on. After you... Her voice cracked. After everything. Ethan's expression was pained. I know how it looks, but I had to make it clean. If you'd known I was involved with the Vance organization, you would have asked questions. And questions get people killed in this world. So you just abandoned me. I protected you. I got you away from Chicago before they started asking about you. Before they realized you'd been living with someone in their network. Maya's head was spinning. You're saying I was in danger before Dorian. You've been in danger since the day you moved in with me. I just kept you insulated from it. He reached out slowly like approaching a wounded animal. But then Dorian saw you, and he's not like me. He doesn't think about consequences. He just takes what he wants. He didn't take anything. I chose to go with him. Did you? Or did he manipulate a vulnerable woman at the worst moment of her life? The accuracy of it stung. Maya pulled back from Ethan's hand. What do you want? I want to get you out of here. There's a car outside. I can drive you to JFK, put you on a plane to anywhere you want, Chicago, Paris. Doesn't matter, you'll be safe. And in exchange? Just tell me what Dorian told you, about the shipment, about his plans, about who he's working with. I don't know anything. Maya, I don't. She was on her feet now, backing away. We talked about coffee and cameras and how much we both hate this city. He didn't confess his crimes to me. He didn't hand me secret files. He just... She stopped, her throat tight. He was just a person. For 12 hours, we were both just people. Ethan stood slowly. You're protecting him. I'm telling you the truth. The truth is that Dorian Vance is a criminal. He stole $5 million from his own family and blamed it on competitors to start a war. People are going to die because of what he did. Innocent people. He said someone framed him. Of course he did. What else would he say? Ethan moved closer. Maya, I know you want to believe in him. I know you're lonely and hurt and he made you feel seen, but he's using you. The moment you're no longer useful, he'll discard you. That's who he is. And who are you? Maya's voice was sharp now. The guy who strung me along for 2 years while working for the mob? The guy who broke up with me to save himself? To save you? Bullshit. You saved yourself and convinced yourself it was noble. Ethan's jaw clenched. Fine. Believe what you want, but you're coming with me either way. No. It wasn't a request. He grabbed her arm. Maya twisted, but his grip was iron. He pulled her toward the door, and she realized with sickening clarity that this wasn't a rescue. It was an extraction. Let go of me. I'm trying to help you by dragging me out of here against my will? By keeping you from making the worst mistake of your life. They were in the hallway now, empty. The guards who'd been outside her room were gone. Ethan pulled her toward an exit, his hand bruising on her wrist. Maya planted her feet. Where are the guards? I told them I'd handle this. They just listened to you? A corporate accountant? I have clearance. You're lying. The pieces clicked together too fast. This isn't a rescue. This is a kidnapping. Ethan's expression shifted. The concern evaporated, replaced by something colder. You're smarter than I gave you credit for. Who are you working for, really? Does it matter? Yes. He sighed, stopped trying to drag her, turned to face her directly. Fine, the truth. I work for Marcus Volkov, have for 3 years, longer than I worked for Dorian's father. Maya's blood turned to ice. The competitor, the one with the stolen shipment. The one with the shipment Dorian stole and delivered to me? Yes. Ethan smiled, and it was the smile she'd fallen in love with once. Warm and genuine. Except now she could see the calculation beneath it. We've been planning this for months. Get close to someone in Dorian's life. Someone he'd trust. Use that connection to plant evidence, create chaos, turn father against son. And I was just, what, convenient? You were perfect. Photographer, artist. Completely separate from our world. When Dorian saw you at that airport, alone and vulnerable, I knew he'd take the bait. He's predictable that way. Maya felt like she was drowning. You sent that text. You made sure I'd missed the Paris flight. I made sure you'd be exactly where Dorian could find you. The rest was just patience. He started pulling her again. Now come on, we're behind schedule. Schedule for what? For delivering you to Volkov. He wants to meet the woman who brought down the Vance Empire. I didn't bring down anything. You existed. That was enough. They were outside now, in an alley between warehouses. A car waited, engine running, not an SUV, something smaller, civilian. Ethan opened the back door. Get in. Maya didn't move. Her mind was racing, trying to find an angle, an escape. But Ethan was stronger than her, and the alley was empty, and screaming would just bring guards who worked for the same people. Maya, don't make this harder. Harder than what? Being used by everyone I've ever trusted? You'll be safe with Volkov. He has no reason to hurt you. You're just a witness, a photo opportunity. And then? Then you go home. Or don't. I really don't care at this point. He shoved her towards the car. Maya stumbled, caught herself against the door. Her hand found the handle, and for a second she considered just getting in, going along, surviving. Then she remembered Dorian's face on that video, the blood, the fear, the apology. She spun, drove her elbow into Ethan's throat. He choked, stumbled back. Maya ran. She had no plan, no destination, just the animal instinct to get away. Her feet pounded against wet pavement as she sprinted down the alley, towards streetlights and traffic, and anything that looked like civilization. Behind her, Ethan shouted something. Footsteps gave chase. Maya burst onto a main street, industrial, but not deserted. A few cars passed. A bus stop with 3 people waiting. She ran toward them, opened her mouth to scream for help. A hand clamped over her mouth from behind. Not Ethan. Someone bigger. They dragged her backward into the shadows between buildings, and she thrashed, bit down hard on the palm covering her face. The hand jerked away with a curse. She twisted free, turned to run, and stopped. Marcus stood in front of her, breathing hard, blood on his hand where she'd bitten him. Behind him, another man she didn't recognize, both armed.
"Easy," Marcus said, hands up in a placating gesture. "We're on your side." "I don't have a side." "You have Dorian's side. That makes you ours." He glanced past her. "Where's Ethan?" "Coming. He's working for Volkov. He was trying to—" "We know. That's why we're here." Marcus gestured to the other man. "Go. Intercept him. Keep it quiet."
The man disappeared back toward the alley. Marcus turned to Maya, his expression urgent. "We don't have much time. Dorian's father has him in the main warehouse. They're planning an execution at midnight, public, to send a message." Maya's watch said 11:23. "We need to get him out," Marcus continued. "But we need leverage, something his father wants more than revenge." "Like what?" "The real evidence. The actual shipping manifests, the ones Dorian's been hiding for the last 6 months. I don't know where they are." "Yes, you do." "I don't—" "The boat. Before we were boarded, Dorian gave you something, a waterproof pouch. You put it in your jacket." Maya's hand went to the pocket automatically. Her fingers found the pouch, still there, forgotten in the chaos. She pulled it out, stared at it. "I thought this was just, I don't know, money. ID. It's insurance. The only copy of evidence that proves Dorian's father has been skimming from his own organization for years. Offshore accounts, shell companies, the whole operation." Marcus held out his hand. "Give it to me and I can trade it for Dorian's life." Maya held the pouch tighter. "How do I know you're telling the truth?" "You don't. But you know Ethan was lying, and you know Dorian's running out of time." Marcus checked his watch. 36 minutes. That's what he has left. Behind them, sounds of a struggle, a grunt, silence. The other man returned, shaking out his hand. "Ethan's handled. He's in the car, unconscious, but he'll live." Marcus looked at Maya. "Decision time. Trust me or trust no one, but make it fast." Maya stared at the pouch in her hands. 3 days ago, she'd been packing for Paris, worried about gallery lighting and whether her photographs were good enough. Now she was holding evidence of criminal enterprises in a warehouse district while men with guns asked her to choose sides in a war she didn't understand. "If I give you this," she said slowly, "Dorian goes free." "If it's enough, yes." "And me?" "You get to walk away, clean, no charges, no retaliation. You go back to being nobody." "I was always nobody." "Exactly. Let's keep it that way." Maya looked at the pouch one more time, then she handed it over. Marcus opened it immediately, pulled out documents sealed in plastic. He scanned them quickly, and something like triumph crossed his face. "This is it. This is—" He looked up. "Where did he get these?" "I don't know. He just told me to hide them." Smart. His father's been looking for these for months, tore apart every property, every account, never thought to check a random woman's jacket. Marcus sealed the documents back up. "Okay, here's what happens now. You stay here. Don't move. Don't call anyone. In 1 hour, this will either be over or everyone dies and you run. Understood?" Maya nodded because what else could she do? Marcus and the other man disappeared into the darkness between warehouses. She stood alone on a street corner in Brooklyn at 11:34 p.m., wearing a dead man's jacket and wondering how many lines she'd crossed without noticing. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She'd forgotten they'd taken it back. Or maybe they hadn't. Maybe Ethan had been carrying it and Marcus had taken it off him. She pulled it out. One new message. Unknown number. Warehouse 7, northwest corner. Fire door. Unlocked. Come alone. D. Maya stared at the text. It made no sense. Dorian was tied up, being executed in 25 minutes. He couldn't have sent this. Could he? She looked around. The street was empty. The warehouses loomed like sleeping giants. Warehouse 7 was 3 buildings down, identifiable by the faded number painted on the side. Every instinct screamed this was a trap, that someone had Dorian's phone and was using it to lure her in, that walking toward that building was the stupidest thing she could possibly do. But the alternative was standing here while he died. Maya started walking. The fire door was exactly where the text said. Unlocked, just slightly ajar. She pulled it open, slipped inside. The interior was dark, industrial. Smelled like oil and rust and something organic she didn't want to identify. Emergency lights provided just enough illumination to see shapes, crates, machinery, pallets stacked 15 feet high. Dorian? Her voice came out as a whisper. No answer. She moved deeper into the warehouse, her phone's flashlight cutting a thin beam through the darkness. The building was massive, and every step echoed off metal walls. Dorian, if this is you... A hand grabbed her from behind. She tried to scream, but another hand covered her mouth. She was dragged backward into the shadows, her phone clattering to the concrete. Quiet. The voice was familiar. Dorian's. He released her, and she spun. It was him, bloodied, beaten, but alive. His hands were still zip-tied in front of him, the plastic digging into his wrists. What the hell? Maya breathed. You're supposed to be... Dead in 20 minutes. I know. He held up his bound hands. Help me. She looked around frantically. With what? Anything sharp. Metal. There. He nodded toward a workbench barely visible in the darkness. Maya found a box cutter, used it to saw through the zip tie. The plastic gave way and Dorian flexed his hands, wincing. How did you get out? She asked. I didn't. They moved me here for the execution. Public display? But the guard they left was new, stupid. I convinced him I needed to piss. He uncuffed one hand. I broke his nose with my elbow and ran, and texted me. I needed you to know I was alive, that I was trying. He cupped her face with both hands, his palms rough and warm. Did you give Marcus the documents? Yes, he said. He lied. Marcus works for my father, has for 20 years. He's loyal to the family, not to me. The world tilted. But he said, whatever got you to hand them over? Dorian's expression was grim. Those documents were the only thing keeping me alive. With them, I could have exposed my father, forced a stalemate. Without them, he released her face, stepped back. I'm dead. And so are you, because they'll assume you read them. I didn't. Doesn't matter. You had access, that's enough. Maya's laugh was brittle, nearly hysterical. So everyone lied. Ethan, Marcus, your father. You're the only one telling the truth? No. Dorian met her eyes. I lied too. When I said you were nobody. When I said I could keep you safe. When I said this would be over soon. He swallowed hard. I'm sorry for all of it. You should have gotten on that plane to Paris. Yeah, I should have. She looked around the warehouse at the darkness closing in. So what now? We just wait to die? No, we run. One more time. I know a way out of the city, Canada. We can make it if we move fast. Dorian, I know you don't trust me. You shouldn't. But right now, I'm all you have. You're not all I have. I have myself. I had myself before you, and I'll have myself after. She was surprised by the steel in her own voice. I'm done being leveraged, done being used. If you want to run, run. I'm going to walk out the front door and take my chances. They'll kill you. Maybe, but at least I'll choose it. She turned to leave, made it 3 steps before Dorian grabbed her arm. Wait. Let go. Maya, please. Just... His voice cracked. I can't watch another person die because of me. Then close your eyes. My mother... The words came out fast, desperate. She died because of this life. Because my father valued power over people. She tried to leave, take me with her, and he... Dorian stopped, his breathing ragged. He had her killed. Made it look like an accident. I was 14, and I've spent every day since trying to be different, trying to be better, trying to prove that blood doesn't define destiny. Maya looked at him. Really looked. And saw past the expensive clothes and the careful composure to the scared kid underneath.
still trying to outrun his father's shadow. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "About your mother, about all of it. But that doesn't change what's happening now." "I know, but maybe—" He glanced toward the far end of the warehouse. "Maybe we don't have to run." "What are you talking about?"
My father wants a confession. He wants me to admit I stole from him, betrayed the family, worked with Volkov. If I give him that publicly, he'll let you go. You're nobody to him, just collateral. He has no reason to keep you. And you? I'll be dead, but you'll be alive." Dorian's smile was sad. "Fair trade." "That's insane. It's the only play I have left." Before Maya could respond, lights flooded the warehouse. Dozens of them, blinding and sudden. She threw up her hand to shield her eyes. When her vision cleared, 20 men surrounded them, all armed, all pointing weapons at center mass. Dorian's father stepped through the circle, flanked by Nikolai and Marcus. He looked at his son with something that might have been disappointment or might have been satisfaction. "I knew you'd run here," he said. "You're predictable, Dorian. Always have been."
"Father, quiet." He turned to Maya. "And you, the photographer, the nobody, thank you for leading us right to him." You didn't have to. We've been tracking your phone since Ethan gave it back." He smiled. "Did you really think Marcus was helping you? That my own man would betray me for a girl my son met in an airport?" Marcus wouldn't meet her eyes. Dorian stepped in front of Maya, shielding her with his body. "Let her go. She's not part of this."
"She became part of it the moment you involved her," his father gestured. "Take them both. Separate rooms. I want confessions by dawn." Hands grabbed Maya, pulled her away from Dorian. She struggled, but there were too many of them. The last thing she saw before they dragged her through a door was Dorian's face, beaten and bloodied and filled with a despair so deep it had no bottom. The room they put her in was smaller than the last. No windows, no drain, just concrete walls and a chair and a single light bulb that flickered like a dying heartbeat. The door opened. Nikolai entered, carrying something in a black case. He set it on the floor, opened it. Inside, tools, pliers, knives, a blowtorch. "I'm going to ask you questions," he said conversationally, "and you're going to answer them truthfully. If you lie, I use these. If you tell the truth, you only suffer a little. Understood?" Maya's mouth was too dry to speak. She nodded. "Good. First question. Where did Dorian hide the money from the stolen shipment?" "I don't know." "Wrong answer." He picked up the pliers. What happened next would stay with Maya forever. Not because of the pain, though there was pain, but because of the moment when she realized that everything she'd thought was real, Dorian's kindness, Ethan's betrayal, even her own agency, had been carefully constructed pieces of a game she'd never understood she was playing. And the only way to survive was to stop being a piece, to become a player. When Nikolai asked his next question, Maya didn't answer. She looked him dead in the eye and smiled. "You want to know where the money is? It's gone. Dorian burned it. All 5 million. Turned it to ash rather than let your boss have it back." Nikolai's expression didn't change, but his hand tightened on the pliers. "You're lying." "Am I?" "Ask yourself why Dorian was so calm when you caught us. Why he wasn't running. He already won. He destroyed the thing his father loved most." She leaned forward despite the pain. "Money. The only thing that bastard values more than control. If that's true, you just signed both your death warrants. We were always dead. But at least this way, we die having hurt him first." Nikolai stared at her for a long moment. Then he set down the pliers, pulled out his phone, and made a call. "Boss, we have a problem." Maya leaned back in the chair, her heart hammering, and prayed to anyone listening that her bluff would buy them enough time for, what? Rescue? Escape? No. Not rescue. Revenge. Because somewhere between the airport and this moment, Maya Ellery had stopped being a victim. And she was about to show everyone exactly what that meant. Nikolai left the room with his phone pressed to his ear, his voice low and urgent. The door slammed shut behind him, the lock clicking with a finality that made Maya's stomach clench. She sat in the chair, her hands shaking, her bluff hanging in the air like smoke. $5 million. Burned. Destroyed. She'd made it up on the spot, pulled it from desperation and rage and the primal need to hurt the people who'd hurt her. But now, alone in the concrete room with blood in her mouth and pain radiating through her ribs, she wondered if she'd just accelerated her own execution. The door burst open 10 minutes later, or maybe it was an hour. Time had stopped meaning anything. Dorian's father strode in, his face a mask of controlled fury. Behind him, Marcus and two guards. He stopped 3 feet from Maya's chair and stared down at her with eyes that could have frozen fire. "Say that again." His voice was quiet, deadly. Maya met his gaze and didn't blink. "Your son burned the money. $5 million in cash, turned it to ash in a warehouse in Red Hook 3 days before you even knew it was missing. You're lying."
Am I? She leaned forward despite the pain screaming through her body. Why else would he be so calm? Why else would he stay in New York instead of running? He already won. He destroyed the thing you value most. The father's jaw clenched. Where? I don't know the address. Some abandoned building by the water. He showed me photos, stacks of bills going up in flames. She smiled, tasting blood. He said it was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen.
"Marcus?" The father didn't turn. "Check the Red Hook properties. Every warehouse we own or have access to. Look for burn marks, ash, anything." Marcus pulled out his phone, started making calls. The father continued staring at Maya like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. "Why would he tell you this?" "Because I asked what he was running from, and he was tired of lying." Maya's voice was steady despite her racing heart. "He said his whole life had been about your money, your power, your legacy, and he wanted to know what it felt like to destroy something irreplaceable. If this is true, then you've already lost. The money's gone. The shipment's gone. Your son hates you, and I'm just the messenger." She leaned back. "So kill me if you want, but it won't bring any of it back." The silence that followed was broken only by Marcus's voice in the background, sharp questions into his phone. The father's hands were clenched at his sides, knuckles white. Then Marcus ended his call, his face pale. "Boss, I just talked to our contact at the Port Authority. There was a fire, 3 days ago, warehouse on Conover Street. They assumed it was squatters, but," he swallowed, "the burn pattern's consistent with accelerant, lots of it." The father's eyes never left Maya's face. "How much damage?" "Total loss. The building's condemned. They're tearing it down next week." "Was there cash inside?" "They won't know until they excavate, but—" Marcus hesitated. "Boss, if there were bills in that fire, they're gone. The temperature would have—" "I know what the temperature would have done." The father's voice could have cut glass. He turned without another word and walked out. The door didn't slam this time, just closed with a soft click that was somehow worse. Maya sat alone with the guards for 30 seconds before Marcus returned. "Get up." His voice was different now, uncertain. "Where are we going?" "To see Dorian. The boss wants you to repeat that story in front of him." They dragged her through corridors that all looked the same: concrete, rust, the smell of industrial decay. Her ribs screamed with every step. One of her eyes was swelling shut. But she walked without help because she'd be damned if she let them carry her. The room they brought her to was bigger than hers. Dorian was chained to a support beam in the center, his wrists above his head, his toes barely touching the floor. His shirt was gone, and his torso was a canvas of bruises in various stages of development. Fresh blood ran from a cut above his eyebrow. When he saw Maya, something flickered across his face. Relief, maybe, or horror. "What did you do to her?" His voice was rough, strained. "Less than we did to you." The father circled them both like a predator selecting prey. "She's been telling us an interesting story about money and fire, and your apparent death wish." Dorian's eyes found Maya's. She saw the question there, saw him trying to read what she'd said, what game she was playing. "Tell him," the father ordered Maya. "Tell my son what you told me." Maya swallowed blood and spoke clearly. "You burned the money, $5 million, in a warehouse in Red Hook. You said it was the most beautiful thing you'd ever seen." For 3 seconds, Dorian's face was blank. Then understanding dawned, and with it, a decision. He started laughing. It wasn't hysterical, wasn't panicked. It was genuine amusement, deep and rich, the sound of someone who'd just realized the punchline to a joke that had been building for years. "Oh, Maya." His voice was warm despite the chains, despite the blood. "You told him." The father's expression darkened. "So it's true." "Every word." Dorian met his father's eyes. I took your precious shipment. I moved it out of the warehouse personally, and then I burned it, all of it, watched the bills curl and blacken and turn to nothing. His smile was vicious. You want to know the best part? I filmed it, every second. It's on a drive hidden where you'll never find it. My insurance policy. There is no insurance. The father's voice was ice. You burned my money, you destroyed evidence, and now you're going to die for it. Probably. But you'll never get it back, and that'll eat at you forever. Dorian's chains rattled as he shifted his weight. You taught me that money is power, so I took your power and made it ash. How does it feel, Father, to be powerless? The father moved faster than Maya expected for a man his age. His fist connected with Dorian's stomach, a blow so hard Maya heard the air leave his lungs. Dorian gasped, his body convulsing, but he didn't cry out. Where's the drive? Fuck you! Another punch, this one to the ribs. The crack was audible. Where? Gone. Mailed to the FBI. They'll have it by morning. It was a lie. Maya could tell by the slight hesitation before Dorian spoke, the way his eyes flicked to the left. But the father bought it, his face going from fury to something closer to panic. You wouldn't. I would. I did. By tomorrow, every federal agency in the country will know exactly what you've built, who you've bribed, who you've killed. Dorian's smile was blood-stained. The empire ends with me. That was always the plan. The father pulled a gun from his waistband, pressed it against Dorian's temple. Last chance. Do it. Dorian's voice didn't waver. Prove to everyone watching that you value money over your own son. Prove I was right about you all along. Maya realized then that other people were in the room, not just Marcus and the guards, but 6 more men she hadn't noticed before. Witnesses. The family's inner circle, brought here to watch the execution. The father's hand trembled on the gun. For the first time since Maya had met him, he looked old. You're my son, he said quietly. I stopped being your son the day I learned what you did to Mother. The gun lowered an inch. I protected her. You murdered her. Dorian's voice broke. She wanted out. She wanted to take me and disappear. And you couldn't let that happen because it would make you look weak. So you staged an accident and you made me watch her funeral and you told me it was God's will when it was yours. She would have destroyed everything. She was trying to save me. The shout echoed off concrete walls. Dorian was crying now, tears mixing with blood, his body shaking in the chains. She saw what you were turning me into, saw the monster you were building, and she chose me over the empire, over the money, over you. His voice dropped to a whisper. So yeah, I burned your money. I destroyed your shipment. I did everything I could to make sure her death meant something. The silence that followed was absolute. Then the father holstered his gun, turned to Marcus, and said 3 words. Kill them both. Marcus pulled his weapon. But he didn't raise it. He stood there, gun at his side, looking between Dorian and the father with an expression Maya couldn't read. Boss, that's an order. He's your son. He's a traitor, and traitors die. You know the rules. Marcus's hand tightened on the gun. I've served this family for 23 years. Never questioned an order, never hesitated. He looked at Dorian, but this is family business, which means you do what I say or join them. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Marcus made his choice. He raised the gun. Maya closed her eyes. The shot was deafening in the enclosed space. When she opened her eyes, the father was on the ground, blood spreading from his shoulder. Marcus stood over him, smoke still rising from his barrel. No, Marcus said quietly. I don't think I will. The room erupted. 3 of the inner circle reached for weapons. 2 moved toward Marcus. 1 dove for the door. The guards by Maya grabbed her, using her as a shield. Marcus shot 1 guard in the leg. The man dropped, screaming. The other guard released Maya and ran. Dorian was shouting something, his voice lost in the chaos. Maya dropped to the ground, making herself small, covering her head as bullets punched through the air above her. Someone stepped over her. She looked up to see Nikolai, his face expressionless, his weapon aimed at Marcus. Sorry, old friend. He fired twice. Marcus went down hard, hitting the concrete with a sound that made Maya's stomach turn. He wasn't dead. She could see his chest moving, but he wasn't getting up. Nikolai turned to the father, who was clutching his shoulder and gasping. Orders? Kill. The father coughed, blood on his lips. Kill Dorian. Take the girl to Volkov. Let him decide what to do with her. What about Marcus? He made his choice. Nikolai nodded, raised his gun toward Dorian. Maya moved without thinking. She lunged, grabbed Marcus's fallen weapon, and fired blindly in Nikolai's direction. The first shot missed. The second hit him in the thigh. He went down cursing, and Maya scrambled backward, the gun shaking in her hands. She'd never fired a weapon before. Never held one except in movies and photographs. The recoil had nearly torn it from her grip, and her ears were ringing from the report. But Nikolai was down, and the gun was still in her hand. She pointed it at Dorian's father. Let him go. The father looked at her like she'd grown a second head. You don't know what you're doing, girl. I know I've got a gun and you're bleeding. That seems pretty clear. You pull that trigger, you start a war you can't win. Your war started the day you killed Dorian's mother. I'm just finishing it. She saw the calculation in his eyes, saw him weighing options, probabilities, outcomes, saw the exact moment he decided she wasn't bluffing. Unchain him, the father said to the remaining conscious guard. Boss, do it. The guard moved slowly, producing keys from his belt. He unlocked Dorian's wrists, and Dorian collapsed, his legs giving out. He caught himself on his knees, breathing hard, his arms hanging useless at his sides. Maya kept the gun trained on the father. Everyone out, now. You're making a mistake. Out! Her voice cracked on the shout, but it had the desired effect. The guards who could walk did, carrying Nikolai between them. The father stood slowly, one hand pressed to his bleeding shoulder. This isn't over, he said. Yeah, it is. Dorian's voice was ragged but firm. He'd made it to his feet, leaning against the support beam. You just lost your enforcer, your men, your leverage. Marcus turned on you, which means others will too. Your empire's cracking, father, and I'm going to be there to watch it fall. You'll be dead before that happens. Maybe, but you'll die knowing I beat you. The father's eyes narrowed. Then he turned and walked out, his footsteps echoing in the sudden quiet. The moment the door closed, Dorian's legs gave out completely. Maya dropped the gun and caught him, her own battered body screaming in protest. They sank to the floor together, his weight against her, both of them breathing like they'd run a marathon. Maya, his voice was barely audible. What you did was insane. I know. You saved my life. You saved mine first, airport, remember? He laughed, a wet sound. Worst decision I ever made. Same. They sat in silence, listening to their own heartbeats, to the drip of blood on concrete, to the distant sounds of shouting from elsewhere in the warehouse. We need to move, Dorian said eventually. My father won't stay gone long. He'll regroup, come back with more people. Where do we go? I don't know. He looked at her, his face a mess of blood and bruises. I'm sorry. For all of this. You should be in Paris right now, taking pictures of cafes and being happy. Paris is overrated anyway. You've never been. I know. But it makes me feel better to say it. Dorian started to stand, winced, sat back down. I think he broke a rib. Pretty sure he broke 3. You counting? I heard them crack. Oh, good. That's not horrifying at all. Maya found herself laughing, a sound that had no business existing in this moment, but came anyway. Dorian joined her, and for 30 seconds they sat on a blood-stained floor in a warehouse that smelled like death and laughed until tears ran down their faces. When they finally stopped, Dorian looked at her seriously. I need to tell you something. If it's another secret that's going to get me killed, I'd rather not know. The money, I didn't actually burn it. Maya blinked. What? The story you told my father, the warehouse in Red Hook, the fire. That really happened. There was a fire. But I had nothing to do with it. Complete coincidence. So where's the money? Hidden. In a place my father would never think to look. Where? Dorian smiled, and despite everything, it was almost boyish. Your storage unit. In Chicago. I had it shipped there 3 days before I met you. 40 crates marked as photography equipment. Maya's mouth fell open. You... what? I needed somewhere off the grid.
Somewhere with no connection to me or my family. Your name came up in background checks on Ethan. Storage facility, lease in your name only, rent paid through the end of the year. It was perfect. So you've been using me since before we even met? No. Yes, sort of. He ran a hand through his bloody hair. I used your storage unit, but meeting you at the airport, that was chance. When I saw you sitting there looking like your world had ended, I didn't think about the money or the storage unit or any of it. I just saw someone who needed help. And then you realized who I was. Not until the next morning. When I ran your name through our database and it flagged the storage unit, I almost told you then. Almost came clean, but he stopped. I was afraid you'd run, and I wasn't ready to let you go. Maya stood up, her body protesting every movement. So all of this, everything, it's been about $5 million sitting in my storage unit under fake shipping labels. Yes and no, the money's there, but that's not why I kept you close. I kept you close because... He looked up at her. Because for 3 days I got to pretend I was someone else. Someone who didn't have blood on his hands and a price on his head. Someone who could sit in a restaurant and talk about cameras and coffee and not think about empires and violence and all the ways I've failed to be different from my father. That's not good enough. I know. I should walk out of here, leave you, go back to Chicago and never think about any of this again. You should. You really should. But I can't. Maya's voice broke. Because somehow in the last 3 days you've become, I don't even know what. Not a friend, not a partner, just someone I can't walk away from. Dorian got to his feet, moving carefully. Then don't walk away. Help me end this. How? The money. It's evidence. Proof of the theft. Proof of my father's operation. Proof of everything. We get it. We take it to the FBI. We watch his empire burn from the inside. And us? Us? Dorian smiled sadly. We probably go to prison. Accomplices to organized crime, money laundering, a dozen other charges. He reached out, touched her face gently. But at least we'd be alive. Maya looked at him. At this man who'd destroyed her life and saved it, who'd lied to her and been more honest than anyone else, who'd brought her into a war she never asked for and given her the weapons to fight it. Okay, she said, let's burn it all down. They made it out of the warehouse through a service entrance, moving slowly, 2 broken people holding each other up. The alley outside was empty except for a car, Marcus's, keys still in the ignition. Gift from a dead man, Dorian muttered, sliding into the driver's seat with a hiss of pain. He's not dead. I saw him breathing. He will be when my father finds him. They drove through Brooklyn in silence, avoiding main streets, taking turns seemingly at random. Dorian was sweating despite the cold, his face pale. You need a hospital, Maya said. After. First we get somewhere safe. Where's safe? There's a place, Connecticut. I told you about it. My mother's house. Your father doesn't know about it? She bought it before they married, kept it in her maiden name. When she died, it passed to a trust I set up years ago. He took a turn too fast, winced. It's not in any database, not connected to the family, just a house. How far? 2 hours. If I don't pass out. That's not funny. Wasn't trying to be. They made it to the highway before the first patrol car spotted them. Lights flared in the rearview mirror and Dorian swore viciously. Local or bought? Maya asked. Does it matter? He pressed the accelerator. The car lurched forward, engine screaming. The patrol car kept pace, and 2 more appeared from side streets, boxing them in. Dorian, hold on. He cut across 3 lanes of traffic, took an exit at 60 miles an hour, and plunged into a residential neighborhood. The patrol cars followed, sirens wailing. They ran 2 red lights and nearly hit a pedestrian before Dorian made a decision. He killed the lights, took a sharp right into an underground parking garage, and descended into darkness. At the bottom level, he parked between 2 SUVs and shut off the engine. They sat in silence, listening to sirens pass overhead. That was stupid, I know. Dorian's hands were shaking on the wheel. But if they stopped us, my father would know where we are within 5 minutes, and we'd be dead in 10. So what now? We wait. 20 minutes. Then we find another car and keep moving. Steal a car? Borrow.
We'll leave money for it. With what money? Dorian pulled a wallet from his jacket. Not his, Maya realized. Marcus's. He won't need it. They waited in the dark, two fugitives in a stolen car in the basement of someone else's life. Maya's entire body hurt. Her eye was swollen shut. Her ribs felt like broken glass with every breath. But she was alive. She was alive and Dorian was alive, and somehow that felt like winning. When this is over, Dorian said quietly, when we've given the FBI everything and testified and done whatever they ask, what will you do? Maya thought about it. Take pictures, real ones, not surveillance or evidence or documentation, just beauty, light, the things that matter. Sounds nice. What about you? I don't know if there's an after for me. He looked at his hands, blood-stained and swollen. I've done things, Maya, bad things. Things that can't be undone with testimony or cooperation. Everyone's done bad things. Not like me. Probably not. But you're trying to be better. That counts for something. He turned to look at her, and in the dim light from the garage's emergency strips, his eyes were impossibly sad. Does it? Does trying matter if you still fail? I think it's the only thing that matters. Before he could respond, headlights swept across them. A car had entered the garage, descending slowly. Dorian's hand went to the gun in his waistband. Marcus's gun, the one Maya had used. Get down! She slid low in her seat, watching the headlights approach. The car passed their row, continued descending. They waited 5 more minutes. Then Dorian started the engine, and they drove up and out, emerging onto streets that looked nothing like the ones they'd fled. He found a 24-hour diner parked behind it. We need different clothes, first aid, food. He was ticking items off mentally, and a way to contact the FBI without my father intercepting it. I know someone, Maya said suddenly. Who? Ethan's roommate, Alex. We met a few times. He works for the state attorney's office. She pulled out her phone, miraculously still in her pocket. If I can reach him, your phone's probably compromised. So we buy a burner. They found a convenience store 3 blocks away. Bought a prepaid phone, bandages, antiseptic, sandwiches that looked like they'd been made during a previous administration. Dorian paid cash, kept his face turned from the security camera. In the car, Maya dialed Alex's number from memory. It rang 4 times before a sleepy voice answered. Hello. Alex, it's Maya Ellery, Ethan's ex. Maya? Jesus, what time? It's 3 a.m. I know. I'm sorry, but I need help, federal-level help, and I need it quietly. A pause. Then, more alert. What kind of help? The kind where I have evidence of organized crime, and I need to hand it to someone who won't immediately get bribed or killed. Maya, what the hell is going on? I can't explain over the phone, but if you can get me a name, someone at the FBI, someone trustworthy, I'll give them enough to dismantle a criminal empire. Another pause, longer this time. Where's Ethan? Last I saw, he was unconscious in the back of a car. He's working for people who want me dead, that's all I know. Shit. Okay, give me 10 minutes. The line went dead. Maya looked at Dorian. He's checking. If he tips off the wrong people, he won't. Alex is... She stopped. Actually, I don't know if he's trustworthy. I just know he's all we've got. They ate the sandwiches in silence. They tasted like cardboard and regret, but Maya's stomach was grateful for anything solid. Dorian could barely swallow, his throat too swollen. The phone rang. Maya answered. Special Agent Sarah Chen, Alex said without preamble. FBI. Organized Crime Division. She's been investigating the Vance family for 2 years. I reached out through back channels. She's clean, confirmed by 3 separate sources. She wants to meet. Where? Federal Plaza, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. You walk in the front door, ask for her by name. That's 12 hours from now. That's the soonest she can guarantee security. The Vance family has... He paused. They have reach. She needs time to set up proper protection. Okay, 9 a.m. We'll be there. Maya. Yeah? Ethan's been asking about you. Says you're in danger. Says Dorian Vance kidnapped you. Ethan's a liar working for a crime family. Tell him I'm fine. Tell him to leave me alone. She hung up before Alex could respond. Dorian was watching her. 12 hours. We can make it. Can we? We have to. They drove through the pre-dawn darkness, heading north toward Connecticut and the house that might be sanctuary or might be another trap. Maya kept her eyes on the rearview mirror, watching for pursuit that didn't come. At 4:47 a.m., they crossed the state line. At 5:23, Dorian pulled onto a gravel road that led through dense forest. At 5:40, they arrived at a house that looked like it had been pulled from a different era. White clapboard, green shutters, a porch that wrapped around 3 sides, surrounded by trees and silence. Dorian killed the engine. We're here. They sat without moving, too tired to open the doors. The sky was lightening in the east, birds starting their morning songs. Normal sounds, peaceful sounds. Maya turned to Dorian. His head was leaned back against the seat, his eyes closed, his breathing shallow. Hey, she said softly. We made it. For now. That's all we ever have. Now. He opened his eyes, looked at her. When this is over, when we've survived the FBI and the trials and whatever comes next, I want to take you to Paris. Paris? Yeah, the real one. Not the escape from your ex one. We'll go to your gallery, see your photographs on the walls, drink expensive wine and pretend we're people who belong in places like that. We'll never belong in places like that. No, but we can pretend. Maya smiled despite everything. Okay, it's a deal. We survive this. You take me to Paris. Deal. They shook on it, their hands battered and blood-stained, sealing a promise that might be impossible to keep. Then they got out of the car and walked into the house, together, as the sun rose on what might be their last free day. Inside, the house was exactly what Maya expected. Old furniture, faded wallpaper, the ghost of a life lived and lost. Dorian moved through it like memory, touching door frames, running his hand along a kitchen counter. My mother taught me to cook here, he said quietly. Basic stuff, pasta, eggs. She said every person should know how to feed themselves. Smart woman. She was. He opened a cabinet, found it still stocked with canned goods. She hated my father's world, hated the violence and the secrets. But she loved me enough to stay, until she couldn't anymore. Dorian, I know what you're going to say, that it wasn't my fault, that I was just a kid, but... He stopped, his voice breaking. She tried to take me with her, and I said no. I said I wanted to stay with my father. I was 14 and stupid, and I thought power mattered more than love. You were 14. You were a child. I was old enough to make a choice, and I chose wrong, and she died for it. Maya crossed the kitchen, took his hand. You can't change the past, but you can honor it by being different, by choosing better now. Is that what we're doing? Choosing better? I think so. I hope so. They stood in the quiet kitchen, holding hands, 2 people who'd found each other at the worst possible moment and somehow made it mean something. Then Dorian's phone rang. He pulled it out, looked at the screen, and went pale. It's my father. Don't answer. If I don't, he'll know we're running. He already knows we're running. Dorian stared at the ringing phone. Then he answered, put it on speaker. Hello, Father. Dorian. The voice was calm, too calm. I'm calling to offer you a choice. I'm done with your choices. This one you'll want to hear. Come back. Now. Bring the girl. And I'll let you both walk away. Clean break. No retaliation. You disappear. I never look for you. I don't believe you. I'm offering you your life. That's not enough? Nothing you offer is ever enough. There's always a price. The price is simple. Give me back what you stole, all of it, and we're done. Dorian looked at Maya. She shook her head. No deal, Dorian said. Then you should know. I have Marcus, what's left of him anyway, and he's been very helpful, told me about a storage unit in Chicago, about 40 crates, about money that should have been mine. Dorian's grip tightened on the phone. If you touch that, it's already gone. My people are loading it into trucks as we speak. By noon, it'll be back where it belongs. A pause. So you see, son, you've already lost. The money's mine. The evidence is gone. All you have left is the girl and your pride. How long do you think either will keep you warm? The line went dead. Dorian stared at the phone like it had bitten him. Then, very calmly, he threw it against the wall, where it shattered into pieces.
He's lying, Maya said. He has to be lying.
He's not. That's the problem. He never lies. He just... Dorian sank into a chair. He just wins. Every time. No matter what I do. We still have the meeting. Tomorrow morning. The FBI will want evidence, which we no longer have. We have our testimony, sure, but without proof, it's just words. And my father has better lawyers than we have words. Maya's mind raced. What about the drive, the one you mentioned, with the video of burning money? Doesn't exist. I made it up to buy time. So we have nothing. We have 12 hours until a meeting we can't win, and a father who'll never stop hunting us. Dorian looked up at her, and the despair in his eyes was absolute. I'm sorry, Maya. I thought I could fix this. I thought... He didn't finish. Didn't need to. They'd lost. The money was gone. The evidence was gone. All that remained was the truth, and truth had never been enough to stop men like Dorian's father. Maya sat down across from him, her mind working frantically. There had to be a way. Some angle they hadn't seen. Some move that would... Her phone buzzed. The burner still in her pocket. She pulled it out. Unknown number. Hello? Maya Ellery? A woman's voice, professional, clipped. Who is this? Special Agent Sarah Chen. Alex gave me this number. I'm calling because I need you to listen very carefully. Maya put the phone on speaker. I'm listening. Your meeting tomorrow, cancel it. Don't come to Federal Plaza. Don't contact my office. Don't trust anyone who says they're working with me. What? Why? Because there's a leak. Someone in my chain of command is on the Vance payroll. The moment you walk through that door, they'll know. And you'll disappear before I can protect you. Dorian leaned forward. Then what do we do? Who's that? Dorian Vance. A pause. The Sun. You're with the Sun. I'm with the only person who's been honest with me in the last 3 days. That answer your question? Another pause. Longer. Then, there's another way. Riskier. But it might work. We're listening. I have a team I trust. Small. Outside normal channels. We've been building a case against the Vance organization for 2 years. We're close. So close. But we need one thing we don't have. What? A witness. Someone inside. Someone who can connect the dots between the money, the crimes, and the people giving orders. Dorian spoke. I can be that witness? You're the son of the primary target. Defense will tear you apart. Then use me anyway. I know where the bodies are buried, literally. That's not enough. Chen stopped. I need the one thing that would make a jury believe you over your father. I need proof that you're not trying to take over his empire. I need proof you're actually helping us. What kind of proof? The kind that puts you in danger. Real danger. The kind that shows a jury you had nothing to gain and everything to lose by coming forward. Maya understood before Dorian did. You want him to wear a wire. I want him to go back, talk to his father, get a confession on tape, names, dates, crimes, everything. That's suicide, Dorian said flatly. It's the only play we have. You go in wired, you get your father talking, and my team moves in the moment we have enough. Clean, fast. Everyone survives. And if he finds the wire, then you don't survive. But at least you'll have tried. The silence in the kitchen was suffocating. Dorian looked at Maya. If I do this... Don't, she said immediately. Don't even consider it. It's the only way. It's insane. He'll kill you the moment he realizes what you're doing. Maybe. Or maybe... Dorian turned back to the phone. How fast can your team move? If you can keep him talking for 3 minutes, we can be inside in 4. But you need to be somewhere we can access, somewhere with exits. The waterfront warehouse, Pier 57. He owns it through shell companies. Does meetings there. Can you get him there? I can try. Dorian, no, Maya started. He covered the phone's microphone. This is the only option. If I don't do this, we spend the rest of our lives running, however long that is. Then I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. You don't get to decide that. Maya, you brought me into this. You don't get to protect me from the ending. They stared at each other, and Maya saw the moment he realized she wasn't backing down. He uncovered the phone. Both of us. Together. Or neither. That's not... Those are the terms. Chen swore quietly. Fine. Both of you. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m. I'll have a team in position. You get your father to that warehouse, you get him talking, and we end this. Tomorrow night, Dorian confirmed. The line went dead. Maya and Dorian sat in the kitchen of his dead mother's house, the morning sun streaming through windows that had witnessed happier times, and faced the reality of what they'd just agreed to. 24 hours from now, they'd either be free, or they'd be dead. And Maya Ellery, who'd gotten on a plane with a stranger 3 days ago just to escape a bad breakup, realized she'd do it all again. Every moment, every mistake. Because somewhere between the airport and now, running had stopped being about escape and started being about justice. They spent the day preparing to die. That's what it felt like anyway. Dorian cleaned weapons he'd pulled from a safe hidden behind his mother's bedroom closet. Maya went through her phone, deleting photos of Ethan, messages from friends who existed in a world she could barely remember. They were putting their affairs in order the way people do when they know tomorrow might not come. At noon, Dorian made eggs, burned them. They ate anyway, sitting at the kitchen table in silence, chewing through char and trying not to think about last meals. Tell me about Paris, Dorian said eventually. The real one. What you would have photographed. Maya set down her fork. Light. The way it hits the sand at sunrise. People who don't know they're beautiful. Moments that don't realize they matter. That's what you see? Through a camera? That's what everyone sees if they look long enough. Most people just don't look. What do you see when you look at me? She studied him across the table, the bruises yellowing on his face, the cut above his eyebrow held together with butterfly bandages, the eyes that had seen too much and still tried to be kind. Someone trying to outrun his father's shadow, she said. Someone who thinks he's already lost but keeps fighting anyway. Am I? Fighting. You're here. You're alive. That's fighting. Dorian looked down at his hands. My mother used to say that survival isn't the same as living, that you could breathe and eat and move through the world and still be dead inside. Was she? Toward the end, yeah. I think so. She'd look at my father across the dinner table and there'd be nothing in her eyes. Just empty. He swallowed hard. I used to think she was weak, that she should have fought harder, but now I understand. Sometimes the fight takes everything, and when it's over, there's nothing left. You're not her, Maya said. You're choosing differently. Am I? Or am I just making the same mistakes with better intentions? Does it matter? Yeah, it does. He met her eyes. Because if I'm going to die tonight, I want it to mean something. I want it to be for something other than revenge or pride or proving my father wrong. What do you want it to be for? Dorian was quiet for a long time. You. I want it to be for you, for getting you out of this, for making sure you get to see Paris for real, not as some escape plan, but as, he stopped, as someone who survived, someone who lived. Maya's throat was tight. I don't want you to die for me. I know, but if it comes to that, no. She reached across the table, grabbed his hand. We both survive. We both walk away. That's the only acceptable ending. Maya, I mean it. You don't get to play martyr. You don't get to decide your life is worth less than mine. We're in this together, which means we finish it together. He turned his hand over, laced his fingers through hers. Okay. Together. They sat like that, hands joined across a table scarred by years of family dinners and ordinary moments, and made a promise they both knew might be impossible to keep. At 3 p.m., Special Agent Sarah Chen called with final instructions. The wire would be waiting at a dead drop in the city, a locker at Grand Central, key taped under the third bench from the east entrance. They'd have 1 hour to retrieve it, 1 hour to practice, and then they'd need to move. The device is small, Chen said. Fits inside a watch battery compartment. Your father would need to be looking for it specifically to find it, but if he suspects, he always suspects. Dorian interrupted. It's his default setting. Then keep him distracted, angry. Emotional people don't think clearly. Use that. How do I get him to the warehouse? Tell him you want to make a deal, that you'll give him the location of the real money in exchange for safe passage for Maya. He'll think you're weak, sentimental. He'll come. And if he brings an army, we'll be there first, positioned, waiting. The moment we have what we need, we move. A pause. But Dorian, You need to understand what you're agreeing to. If this works, your father goes to prison for life. Your entire family organization collapses. Everyone you've ever known in that world will consider you a traitor. Good. You won't be able to go back, not ever. No reconciliation, no second chances. You'll be the man who destroyed his own family. I destroyed it the moment I was born into it. Dorian's voice was flat. This just makes it official. Chen was quiet for a moment. All right, 8 p.m., Pier 57. Don't be late. The line went dead. They drove back to the city in the stolen car through afternoon traffic that felt surreal in its normalcy. People going to jobs, running errands, living lives that didn't involve wires and warehouses and federal agents. Maya watched them through the window and felt the distance like physical pain. She'd been one of those people 4 days ago, worried about gallery openings and boyfriend troubles and whether her rent check would clear. Normal problems. Human problems. Now she was heading into a situation that would either end with her testifying against a crime family or bleeding out on a warehouse floor. And she couldn't remember what normal felt like anymore. You can still walk away, Dorian said quietly. I can drop you at the FBI field office. Tell them everything. They'd protect you. We've had this conversation. I know, but I need you to hear it one more time. You don't have to do this. Neither do you. Yes, I do. This is my family, my legacy, my mess to clean up. He glanced at her. But you were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. You don't owe me anything. You're right. I don't owe you. Maya turned to face him. But I owe myself. And the version of me that walks away now that lets you do this alone. I don't want to be her. I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering if I could have made a difference. You already made a difference. How? You reminded me what it feels like to be human, to care about someone other than myself, to think that maybe, despite everything, I could still be worth something. Maya's eyes burned. You are worth something. We'll see. He pulled into a parking garage 3 blocks from Grand Central. 30 minutes until the dead drop. We should go over the plan again. They did, step by step. Every contingency they could think of, where to stand, what to say, how to keep the conversation going if it started to die, where the exits were, where Chen's team would be positioned, what the arrest signal would be. It all felt mechanical, rehearsed, like they were planning a performance instead of a confrontation that would determine whether they lived or died. At 4:47 p.m., they retrieved the wire from the locker. It was smaller than Maya expected, a chip no bigger than a pencil eraser, housed in a dummy watch battery. Dorian fitted it into his watch while Maya stood guard, her heart hammering. Testing, he said quietly. Can you hear me? His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, crystal clear. Good luck. They left Grand Central and found a coffee shop 3 blocks away. Ordered drinks neither of them wanted. Sat by the window and watched the city prepare for evening. Tell me something true, Maya said. Something you've never told anyone. Dorian considered this. I used to want to be a teacher. History. I'd imagine standing in front of a classroom, talking about empires that rose and fell, about people who made choices that changed the world. He smiled sadly. I thought if I understood the past, I could avoid repeating it. Why didn't you? My father. He said teaching was for people who couldn't do, that Vance men were doers, builders, leaders. Dorian stared into his coffee. I was 17. I believed him. By the time I realized he was wrong, I was already too deep in the family business to get out. You're getting out now. Or dying trying. He looked at her. Your turn. Tell me something true. Maya thought about it. I don't actually want to go to Paris. What? The gallery, the showing, all of it? It was never really about Paris. It was about proving I could be someone other than the girl who settled, who stayed with a man who didn't love her because being alone felt worse. She laughed bitterly. And then I got on a plane with a stranger and ended up in something way worse than being alone. Is it worse? Really? Maya looked at him, at this man who'd lied to her and saved her, who'd destroyed her life and given it meaning, who'd made every wrong choice for almost right reasons. No, she said quietly. It's not worse. It's terrifying and awful, and I might die tonight, but at least I feel alive. Dorian reached across the table, took her hand. If we survive this, when we survive this. When we survive this, he corrected, I'm taking you somewhere. Not Paris. Somewhere neither of us has been. Somewhere with no history, no baggage. Just possibility. Where? I don't know yet. We'll figure it out together. They sat in the coffee shop until the light outside began to fade, holding hands across a table, two people who'd met as strangers and become something neither had words for. At 7:15 p.m., Dorian called his father. The phone rang 3 times before a voice answered. Not his father. Nikolai. Dorian, we've been expecting your call. Put him on. He's busy. You can talk to me. I don't make deals with enforcers. Put him on or I hang up and disappear. A pause. Muffled conversation. Then a new voice, cold and hard. You have 30 seconds before I hang up and put a price on both your heads. I want to make a deal, Dorian said. His voice was steady despite the sweat on his palms. I'll tell you where the real money is. All of it. In exchange, you let Maya go. Clean. No retaliation. She walks away and you never look for her. And you? I'll take whatever punishment you think I deserve. But she goes free first. His father laughed, a sound like breaking glass. You think I'm stupid? You think I'll agree to meet you so you can what? Ambush me? Call the FBI? I think you want your money back more than you want me dead. And I think you're curious whether I'm actually stupid enough to walk into a meeting alone. Where? Pier 57, 8 p.m. You, me, and 2 guards maximum. Maya stays in the car until we have a deal. No. Then I dump the money in the Hudson and you never see it again. Silence. Dorian could almost hear his father calculating odds, weighing risks. Fine. 8 p.m. But if this is a trap, it's not a trap. It's a surrender. There's a difference. We'll see. The line went dead. Dorian set the phone down with shaking hands. Maya was staring at him. He's coming, Dorian said. I heard. You're not actually staying in the car. Absolutely not. Maya. We're doing this together. That was the deal. Dorian wanted to argue, wanted to fight, wanted to lock her somewhere safe and do this alone. But he'd learned over the past 4 days that Maya Ellery didn't lock easily. Okay, he said. Together. They drove to Pier 57 through streets growing dark with evening. The warehouse district was quiet. Abandoned buildings, rusted machinery, the kind of place where bodies ended up when people needed them to disappear. Chen's team was already in position. Dorian couldn't see them, but he knew they were there. Snipers on roofs, agents in unmarked vans, a tactical team ready to move the moment the signal came. He parked the car 50 yards from the warehouse entrance. Through the windshield, he could see lights inside. His father had arrived early. Last chance, Dorian said. You can still... If you finish that sentence, I'm going to hit you. Despite everything, he smiled. Okay. They got out of the car. The night air was cold, carrying the smell of salt water and rust. Maya's hand found his, and they walked toward the warehouse together, 2 people heading into the end of everything. The warehouse interior was exactly as Dorian remembered. Vast, empty, with support beams creating shadows that could hide anything. His father stood in the center under a single overhead light, flanked by 2 guards. Not Nikolai, younger men, hungrier. And standing off to the side, looking uncomfortable in an expensive suit, was Ethan. Maya's hand tightened on Dorian's. What is he doing here? Insurance, probably. My father likes to have leverage. They walked forward until they were 10 feet from the light, close enough to talk, far enough to run if necessary. Dorian's father studied them with eyes that showed nothing. You look terrible. You shot me. Multiple times. I shot at you. If I'd wanted you dead, you'd be dead. His gaze shifted to Maya. And you, the photographer. You've caused more trouble than you're worth. Story of my life, Maya said. Where's my money? Dorian pulled out his phone, pulled up a photo, showed it to his father, a storage unit packed with crates. Chicago, boxed as photography equipment. Your people already know this. They picked it up yesterday. That was a decoy. 5 million in counterfeit bills wrapped around newspaper. Did you think I wouldn't check? Dorian's expression didn't change, but Maya felt his pulse spike. Then you have a problem, because that's all there is. You're lying. I'm not.
The real money was in those crates. If it's counterfeit, someone switched it before you got there. His father's eyes narrowed. Who? I don't know, but I can think of one person with access to Chicago operations and a reason to frame me. Everyone looked at Ethan. He held up his hands immediately. I didn't touch the money. I reported the location like I was supposed to.
After you tried to kidnap Maya.
Dorian's voice was cold.
After you told her I was the enemy. After you conveniently disappeared when your people came to collect. I was following orders. Whose orders? The father's voice cut through. Mine or Volkov's? Ethan's face went pale. I don't know what you're... Marcus told me everything before he died. How you've been passing information to Volkov for months. How you've been setting up this whole thing. The theft, the frame, turning father against son. Dorian was lying smoothly now, the wire picking up every word. You wanted us to destroy each other so Volkov could move in and take over. That's insane.
Is it? Because $5 million in real money went into that storage unit. I watched it get loaded. I have photos, timestamps, manifests. If it came out counterfeit, someone made a switch, someone with access and motivation. The father pulled a gun, pointed it at Ethan. Explain. I can't. There's nothing to explain. I didn't. Who do you work for? You. I work for you. Wrong answer.
The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. Ethan went down screaming, clutching his leg where blood was spreading fast. Maya jerked, but Dorian held her hand tight. Don't react. Don't move. The father stepped over Ethan's writhing body without looking down. Try again. Who do you work for? Volkov. Ethan gasped it through the pain. I work for Volkov. Have for 3 years. He wanted your empire. Said if I could turn you against Dorian, create chaos, he could sweep in and take over while you were fighting each other. And the money? Switched it last week. Replaced it with counterfeit before your people got there. The real bills are in Volkov's warehouse in Newark. Where in Newark? Ethan gave an address between sobs. The father gestured to one of his guards, who pulled out a phone and started making calls. Dorian's father turned back to him. So, you were telling the truth. The storage unit was real. Ethan betrayed us both. Looks like it. Which means you didn't steal from me. No, I didn't. But you were going to. Eventually, weren't you? You were planning to leave, take the money, expose the family, destroy everything I built. Dorian met his father's eyes. Yes. The honesty seemed to surprise him. Why? Because you killed my mother. Because you turned me into something I hate. Because every day I spend in your world makes me more like you, and I'd rather die than become you. His father's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. Your mother was weak. She was human. There's a difference. Humanity is weakness. I thought I taught you that. You tried. But she taught me something else first. She taught me that the only thing worth having is the thing you'd give up everything for. And you, Dorian's voice broke. You'd give up anything for power, including your own son. I'm here, aren't I? I came when you called. Because you wanted your money, not because you wanted me. The silence stretched between them, father and son, separated by decades of violence and disappointment. Then the father lowered his gun. You're right. I don't want you. I want the empire, the legacy, the thing that outlasts flesh and blood. He looked at Maya. And you, what do you want? To never see any of you again, Maya said. To go back to my normal, boring life and pretend this never happened. Unfortunately, that's not possible. You've seen too much, know too much. You're a loose end. So you're going to kill me. I'm going to make you disappear. There's a difference. Dorian stepped between them. No, you agreed. She walks away clean. I lied. Surely you're not surprised. I'm not. Dorian's hand moved to his waistband. But I was counting on it. He pulled the gun, Marcus's gun, and pointed it at his father's chest. The guards raised their weapons immediately. Dorian's father didn't move, didn't even blink. You won't shoot me, he said calmly. Won't I? You're soft, sentimental. You couldn't even shoot a stranger to save yourself. You think you can shoot your own father? You're not my father. Fathers protect their children. You used me, molded me, tried to turn me into a weapon you could control. I gave you everything. You gave me nothing. Dorian's finger tightened on the trigger. And now I'm taking it back. Dorian, Chen's voice crackled through a speaker somewhere in the rafters. We have enough. Stand down. Let us take him. Lights flooded the warehouse. Doors burst open. FBI agents poured in from every direction, weapons raised, voices shouting commands. The guards dropped their guns immediately. Smart. They knew when they were beaten. But Dorian's father didn't move. He stood in the light, staring at his son, and something like pride flickered across his face. You set me up, he said quietly. The whole thing. The phone call. The meeting. You were wearing a wire. Yes, and you got me to confess, to implicate myself, to give the FBI everything they needed. Yes. I underestimated you. His father smiled, and it was the saddest thing Dorian had ever seen. Your mother would be proud. Don't! Dorian's voice cracked. Don't you dare talk about her. She tried to take you from me. Did you know that? The day she died, she had tickets, 2 of them, to Vancouver. She was going to run, take you with her, disappear. I know. I couldn't let that happen. She was going to destroy everything, turn you against me, make you weak like her. So you killed her. I protected the family. His father's eyes were cold. I did what needed to be done, just like you're doing now. I'm nothing like you. Aren't you? You lied, manipulated, used this girl, he gestured at Maya, to get what you wanted. You think that makes you different, better? I'm trying to be better. Trying isn't the same as succeeding. FBI agents were surrounding them now, shouting for weapons down, hands visible. Dorian lowered the gun slowly, set it on the ground. His father was handcuffed first. As they led him away, he looked back at Dorian one last time. You've destroyed everything, he said. The family, the business, generations of work. I hope it was worth it. It was, Dorian said, because you're finally going to pay for what you did to her. His father's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes dimmed. I already paid, every day, every time I looked at you and saw her face. Then he was gone, led out of the warehouse by agents who didn't care about his legacy or his empire or the empire he'd built from blood and ambition. Maya moved to Dorian's side as Chen approached. The agent looked between them, assessing. You did good work, she said. The wire picked up everything. Confessions, names, locations. It's enough to dismantle the entire organization. What about us? Maya asked. You're free to go, both of you. We'll need statements, depositions, probably testimony at trial, but you're not under arrest. You're witnesses, protected witnesses. For how long? Depends. Could be months, could be years. The Vance organization has reach, and cutting off the head doesn't kill the body immediately. There'll be people who blame you, she looked at Dorian, for what happened. People who want revenge. Story of my life, Dorian said. Chen pulled out a card, handed it to Maya. This is my direct number. You have any trouble, any threats, anything that feels wrong, you call me, immediately. Maya took the card. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. The hard part's just starting. Chen gestured to the warehouse exit. You should go, before the press shows up. This is going to be all over the news by morning. They walked out together, past agents and evidence markers and the wreckage of a criminal empire. The night air felt impossibly clean after the warehouse's confined space. Dorian stopped at the car, leaned against it. His hands were shaking. You okay? Maya asked. I just destroyed my own family. You destroyed a criminal organization that happened to be run by your family. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. Maya took his hands, stilled the shaking. Your father gave you a choice. Become like him or become yourself. You chose yourself. That's not destruction. That's survival. Dorian looked at her, and the exhaustion in his eyes was bottomless. What do we do now? We leave. Tonight. Get in this car and drive until we hit somewhere that feels like possibility instead of consequence. Where? I don't know. West, maybe? California? Ocean? Somewhere we can breathe. The FBI has our statements, has our numbers. They can find us if they need us. Maya opened the car door. But right now, we need to find ourselves. They drove out of Brooklyn as midnight approached, through streets that were emptying for the night. Neither spoke. They were too tired for words, too wrung out from 4 days that had felt like a lifetime. Somewhere in New Jersey, Maya's phone buzzed. She pulled it out, expecting Chen or Alex or another complication. It was a text from an unknown number. The gallery called. They still want your photos. They're holding your spot. You've got 3 weeks. Alex. She showed Dorian the screen. Paris. You should go. I don't want to go alone. Then don't. He glanced at her. I've never been to Paris. You're a wanted man. Well, a wanted witness. Protected witness. Can you even leave the country? Probably not legally, but since when has that stopped me? Maya laughed despite everything. You're serious. Dead serious. We survived this. We earned Paris. The real one. Not running away. Running toward. That's the worst line I've ever heard. Give me a break. I've been shot multiple times. They drove through the night, through states that blurred together, through rest stops and diners and small towns that didn't know or care who they were. Somewhere in Pennsylvania, Dorian pulled into a motel with vacancy and paid cash for a room. The room was exactly what Maya expected. Dated furniture, questionable wallpaper, a bed that sagged in the middle. It was perfect. They collapsed onto the bed fully clothed, too exhausted to even remove their shoes. Maya's head found Dorian's shoulder. His arm wrapped around her. Tell me something, she said into the darkness. Something true. I don't know how to be a normal person. I don't know how to have a normal life. I've spent 32 years being the heir to a criminal empire, and now that's gone, and I don't know who I am without it. You're Dorian, the man who chose different, who chose better. Maya lifted her head to look at him. And normal is overrated anyway. I tried normal. It got me a boyfriend who worked for the mob and broke up with me via text. Fair point. Besides, she settled back against him. We've got time to figure it out, however much time it takes. What if it takes forever? Then it takes forever. They fell asleep like that. Two people who'd met as strangers 4 days ago, who'd survived bullets and betrayal, and the end of everything they'd known, who'd chosen each other when choosing nothing would have been easier. When Maya woke, sunlight was streaming through cheap curtains and Dorian was gone. Panic spiked cold through her chest. She sat up, looked around the room. His jacket was still on the chair, his phone on the nightstand. He hadn't run. The door opened and Dorian entered carrying coffee and paper bags. Breakfast, he said. Such as it is. The diner across the street had exactly 3 options, and they all looked suspicious, so I got one of each. Maya took the coffee, drank it black and terrible and perfect. You went out. I needed air and coffee, mostly coffee. You could have woken me. You looked peaceful. Figured you'd earned it. He sat on the bed, pulled out something wrapped in foil. It's supposed to be a breakfast sandwich, I think. The eggs are definitely eggs. The rest is anyone's guess. They ate in companionable silence, and it felt normal, ordinary. Like 2 people sharing breakfast instead of 2 fugitives hiding from the wreckage of their lives. Chen called, Dorian said eventually. While you were sleeping. The arrests went well. They got 43 people last night. Upper management, enforcers, accountants, the whole organization. Your father? Maximum security, no bail, trial's set for 3 months from now. Maya processed this. How do you feel? I don't know. Empty, maybe. I spent my whole life hating him, fearing him, trying to be different from him. And now he's just gone. And I don't know what to do with that. You live. You figure out who you are when you're not defined by opposition. Easier said than done. Everything is. They finished eating, threw away the trash, and stood at the motel room window looking out at a parking lot in Pennsylvania that could have been anywhere. Where do we go from here? Dorian asked. Maya thought about it. Forward, whatever that looks like. That's not a plan. No, but it's a direction. They checked out of the motel at noon and kept driving west. Through Pennsylvania into Ohio, through Ohio into Indiana. They stopped at roadside diners for food that varied from mediocre to terrible. They slept in motels with names like Sleepy Hollow Inn and Restful Nights. They talked about everything and nothing, childhoods and dreams and the futures they'd imagined before everything changed. 3 days later, they reached the ocean, not California. Oregon, a small town Maya had never heard of, perched on cliffs above the Pacific. They found a rental house with a view of the water and paid cash for a month. "This'll work," Maya said, standing on the deck, watching waves crash against rocks below. "For what?" "For healing, for figuring things out, for—" She gestured vaguely. "Whatever comes next." Dorian stood beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "I like the sound of that. Whatever comes next." They spent the next 3 weeks existing. Not running, not fighting, just being. Maya took photographs of the coastline, of fishing boats at dawn, of light on water. Dorian read books he'd never had time for, history and philosophy, and novels that didn't involve violence. They walked on the beach every evening, barefoot in cold sand, talking or not talking, depending on the day. They cooked simple meals and ate them watching the sunset. They slept without nightmares for the first time in months. It wasn't paradise. The FBI called regularly with questions. The media tracked them down twice, requiring moves to different rentals. Dorian had panic attacks that left him shaking. Maya woke up some nights unable to breathe, certain someone was coming through the door with a gun. But they survived. Together. And survival started to feel like more than just not dying. 4 weeks after leaving New York, Maya got a call from the gallery in Paris. "Ms. Ellery, this is Claude Renou. We spoke about your exhibition." "I remember." "We still have your slot. 3 weeks from tomorrow. Can you make it?" Maya looked at Dorian, who was reading on the deck, at the ocean beyond, at the life they were building from the wreckage of everything they'd lost. "Yes," she said, "I can make it." "Wonderful. And the +1? Will you be bringing anyone?" "Yeah, I will." "Excellent. We'll see you both then." Maya ended the call and walked out to the deck.
Paris, 3 weeks. Dorian looked up from his book. "We going?" "If you want to." "Do I need a tuxedo?" "Probably." "Then I want to."
They flew to Paris on a Tuesday, commercial flight, tourist class. Maya's photographs were mounted on white walls in a gallery smaller than she'd imagined, but more prestigious than she'd hoped. Portraits of Chicago, landscapes of Oregon, and one new series, candid shots of Dorian taken over the last month when he wasn't paying attention. Reading on the deck, walking on the beach, staring at the ocean like he was trying to understand it. In every photo, there was something vulnerable, something real, something that suggested a man learning how to be human after a lifetime of being a weapon. The curator loved them. "Such intimacy," she said in accented English. "Such honesty. Who is your subject?" "Someone trying to figure out who he is," Maya said. "Aren't we all?" The curator smiled. "He must trust you very much to let you see him this way." Maya glanced across the gallery to where Dorian stood in a borrowed tuxedo, looking uncomfortable and beautiful and utterly out of place among the wine-sipping art crowd. "Yeah," she said. "He does." The opening was a success by any measure, sales, reviews. A critic from Le Monde called her work brutally intimate. Maya smiled at that, thinking about bullets and warehouses and the brutal intimacy of survival. Afterward, she and Dorian walked along the Seine, watching the city lights reflect on dark water. "You were right," Dorian said. "Paris is overrated." "You think?" "Too many tourists. Too expensive. The Eiffel Tower is smaller than I thought." "We didn't even go to the Eiffel Tower." "Exactly. Overrated," Maya laughed, the sound carrying across the water. "So where to next?" "I don't know. Somewhere we've never been. Somewhere with no history." "That's impossible. Everywhere has history." "Then somewhere with different history, better history." He stopped walking, turned to face her. "Or we make our own." "And how do we do that?" "Like this." He kissed her, right there on a bridge over the Seine, with Paris glittering around them, and their futures uncertain, and their pasts impossible to escape. It was a kiss that tasted like freedom and fear and the possibility of beginning again. When they broke apart, Maya was smiling. "That's a good start," she said. "Just a start? We've got time for the rest." They walked back to their hotel through streets that had witnessed centuries of love and war and revolution and ordinary human moments. Tomorrow they'd figure out visas and next destinations and all the practical details of building a life from scratch. But tonight, they were just two people in Paris,
holding hands, choosing each other over all the easier options.
Maya thought about the text message that had started everything. Don't hate me. 3 words that had destroyed her life and rebuilt it into something she didn't recognize but was learning to love. She thought about Ethan, probably in custody or in hiding, his betrayal the catalyst for everything that followed. About Dorian's father, sitting in a cell awaiting trial for crimes that went back decades. About Marcus, who'd made one final choice that mattered more than all the years of loyalty before it. Everyone had made choices. Some good, some terrible, all of them rippling outward in ways no one could predict. And Maya had chosen too. At an airport, on a plane, in a warehouse with a gun in her hand. Every moment a decision, every decision a consequence. But this, Paris with Dorian, a gallery show with her name on it, a future that was terrifying and uncertain and entirely their own, this felt like the right choice. Or at least, it felt like choosing. 6 months later, they were in Prague when the verdict came through. Guilty on all counts. Life without parole. Dorian took the call on a balcony overlooking the Vltava River, his face unreadable. When he hung up, Maya was waiting. "It's over," he said. "How do you feel?" "I don't know. Relieved? Sad? Both?" He looked at her. "Is it terrible that part of me wishes things had been different? That he'd been different?" "No. It's human." "I'm not sure I know how to be human. I'm still learning." "Then keep learning. We've got time." They stayed in Prague for another week, then moved on. Berlin, Amsterdam, Copenhagen, cities that welcomed strangers and didn't ask questions. Maya photographed everything, people and places and moments that would never come again. Dorian read and thought and slowly, painfully, figured out who he was when he wasn't his father's son. They fought sometimes, about money and plans and the fact that neither of them knew how to be in a relationship that wasn't built on adrenaline and survival. They made up. They learned each other's edges and accommodated them or pushed against them depending on the day. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. 1 year after the warehouse, they were in a small town in Scotland, renting a cottage that looked out over highlands that seemed to go on forever. Maya was editing photos on her laptop when Dorian came in from a walk, windblown and thoughtful. "I've been thinking," he said. "Dangerous. I want to go back." Maya looked up. "Back where?" "New York. Just for a day. There's something I need to do." They flew to New York on a Tuesday, 1 year and 11 days after they'd left. The city looked the same, too big, too loud, too much everything. Dorian led her to a cemetery in Queens, found a grave marked with his mother's name, stood there for a long time without speaking. Finally, he pulled something from his pocket, a letter, folded and worn like he'd been carrying it for months. "I wrote this," he said, 6 months ago. In Berlin. I've been trying to figure out what to say to her. How to apologize for all the years I blamed her for being weak when she was the strongest person I knew. You don't have to read it to me. I want to. He unfolded the letter and read. It was short, honest, full of regret and love and the understanding that came too late to matter, but still mattered anyway. When he finished, he folded it again and tucked it under a stone by the grave. "Think she heard?" he asked. "Yeah, I think she did." They stood together in the quiet cemetery, 2 people who'd survived the worst year of their lives and come out the other side changed, but intact. "You ready to leave?" Maya asked eventually. "Almost." Dorian turned to her. "I need to ask you something." "Okay." "That night at the airport, when I offered you the plane, you could have said no. Probably should have. What made you say yes?" Maya thought about it. "I was tired of being safe, tired of making the sensible choice. I wanted—" She stopped, searching for words. "I wanted to feel like my life was mine, like I was choosing it instead of just accepting what I was given. And you represented possibility. Dangerous possibility, sure, but still, a chance to be someone different. And now, do you regret it?" "Sometimes. When I can't sleep because I'm remembering warehouses and guns and the look on your father's face when you betrayed him." She took his hand. "But mostly, no. Because I'm here. I'm alive. I'm doing work I love with someone who—" She stopped. "Someone who matters." "Matters how?" "Just matters.
in a way I didn't know people could matter. Dorian pulled her close, kissed her forehead. I'm going to do better, be better. I don't know how yet, but I'm trying. Trying is enough. They left the cemetery as the sun set, casting long shadows across graves that held stories of lives lived and lost and remembered. Flew back to Scotland that night and arrived at the cottage as dawn was breaking over the highlands. Maya made coffee while Dorian built a fire. They sat on the floor in front of it, wrapped in blankets, watching flames dance. Tell me something, Maya said. Something you want for the future. A garden. Something I can grow and tend and watch change with the seasons. Something that proves I can create instead of destroy. That's nice. What about you? I want to take photos that matter, not just beautiful ones, but ones that, I don't know, make people feel less alone. Make them realize they're not the only ones struggling or surviving or trying to figure out who they are. You already do that. Sometimes. I want to do it consistently, intentionally. She leaned against him. And I want to do it from somewhere stable, not running anymore, just living. Where? I don't know, maybe here, maybe somewhere else. As long as it's somewhere we both choose. Together. Together. They sat watching the fire burn down to embers, two people who'd met as strangers at an airport and become something neither had words for. Not quite lovers, though they were that. Not quite partners, though they were that too. Just two people who'd survived the worst and chosen to build something better from the wreckage. Outside, the highlands stretched toward the horizon, ancient and indifferent and beautiful. And Maya Ellery, who'd gotten on a plane with a stranger because her boyfriend had dumped her via text, realized that sometimes the worst moments of your life were just the beginning of the best ones. Sometimes disaster was just opportunity in a different mask. Sometimes the only way forward was through. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, choosing the dangerous thing, the uncertain thing, the thing that terrified you, was exactly what you needed to become who you were always meant to be. She was still figuring out who that was. But she had time. They both did. And for now, that was enough.